Chapter 477. You don't even have the face to see others. Why do you care if they touch your face? Nongzhu chuckled. You are the one who doesn't have the face to see others. Yu Qianqiu glared at her and waved his fan. Come with me to the Moon Clan if you can. Let's see who is the one who doesn't have the face to see others. Ah. Nongzhu's smile froze on her face. She subconsciously looked back at the stunned crowd and lost the mood to bicker with him. She quickly changed the topic and said, You could impersonate anyone, but why did you impersonate me? It's fine if you pretend to be me, but shouldn't you at least make it look real? This kind of virtue is simply ruining my reputation. She looked up and down at Yu Qianqiu with disdain. He was wearing a brocade robe and holding a huge golden folding fan. The most disgusting thing was that the golden fan was covered with a bunch of rich peonies. He looked exactly like a nouveau riche. What a joke. Pretend to be you? Who said I am pretending to be you? Yu Qianqiu refused to admit it. Nongzhu made him feel that she was his nemesis. When he was unhappy, he might call Nongzhu Sr. in front of his master. Now, he just called her you. Ha! Is there a second Nongzhu in the cultivation world? Nongzhu snorted and said, Everyone in the house calls you Mr. Nongzhu. Am I talking nonsense? Yu Qianqiu's expression didn't change as he said, That's what they called me. You can ask them. I never said that I was Mr. Nongzhu. They just misunderstood. What he said was equivalent to admitting that he was not Mr. Nongzhu. The expressions on Wen Yuan's and Wen Bai's faces collapsed in an instant. Their last glimmer of hope was shattered. Come to think of it, Nongzhu had been hinting that he was Mr. Nongzhu. He had never said that he was Mr. Nongzhu. Now they suddenly realized that the person who had been worshipping for so long was an imposter. The two of them were a little stunned. Although they didn't dare to say anything in front of the elders, they were very angry. When Rue, who had a gloomy expression at first, calmed down after knowing that this person was a fake. There was no doubt that this person knew Nongzhu, and his background was not ordinary at all. Instead, he was arguing with Nongzhu. Now, there was no need to pursue the matter. When Rue secretly wondered who was under this mask. Had he seen this person before? Nongzhu was startled. She glanced at Wen Yuan and Wen Bai's expressions and understood that Yu Qianqiu must have misled them. Otherwise, how could there be such a big misunderstanding? This guy was not a good person. He couldn't help but sneer, Sure enough, you're wearing a mask and your skin is even thicker. You and I both know exactly what is going on. Sir, who is this? When Rue walked to Nongzhu and asked. Nongzhu paused and thought to herself that she really couldn't tell him about Yu Qianqiu's identity. If the one family knew that Yu Qianqiu was Bai Chongqun's disciple, she really didn't know what would happen. So she smiled faintly and said, Nothing. He is the disciple of an old friend. This guy is always frivolous and likes to fool around. When Rue said, Oh. Seeing that Nongzhu was unwilling to explain, he didn't probe further. At this moment, Hibiscus and Hipster ran in from outside the courtyard excitedly. They were stunned to see so many people here. Yu Qianqiu waved to Hibiscus. Hibiscus immediately ran to his side and looked curiously at the two strangers in front of her. Hipster also slowly came to Hibiscus's side and heard Wen Yuan say in a low voice, Qing'er, come back. Hipster immediately realized that the atmosphere was a little strange and walked back to Wen Yuan's side in confusion. Nongzhu saw that Hibiscus and Yu Qianqiu were very close and asked in surprise, Who is she? My woman. Yu Qianqiu said without hesitation. Hearing this, Nongzhu frowned slightly and no one knew what she was thinking. After thinking for a while she turned and said, Wen Rue, there is nothing here. You can leave first. I have some private matters to discuss with him. Sir, please go ahead. Wen Rue nodded and turned to walk as he said to the others, Follow me, I have something to ask you. Wen Yuan and the other two followed him silently. There was indeed no place for them to talk. After they left, Nongzhu smiled again and said happily, Yu Qianqiu, you are quite bold. I have already said that they have misunderstood. If you want to hold a grudge, I can't do anything about it. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. Let's forget about this matter. I'm not talking about that. Nongzhu waved her hand and said, I said you are bold because you even dared to kidnap Yin Baikong's grandson. I'm afraid you still don't know what kind of person Yin Baikong is. Yin Baikong? Who is Yin Baikong? Yu Qianzhou's words were calm, but he was shocked. I did this without anyone knowing. How did this guy know? Could it be that he was here because of this? At first, Yu Qianzhou thought that Nongzhu's arrival was purely a coincidence. However, Nongzhu actually said that he was the one who kidnapped Yin Baikong. This was a serious problem. From what he had seen in the Jade Archives these past few days, Yin Baikong was indeed not a person to be trifled with. No matter how he thought about it, he felt that there were no loopholes in his plan. Yu Qianzhou deeply suspected that this guy was very cunning. Maybe he was trying to trick him. Just keep pretending. Nongzhu snorted and said, I'm just reminding you that this matter has already spread to the entire cultivation world. Many demigod stage experts have already gathered in Dian Kingdom. I also rushed over from Obedient Island when I heard this news. I advise you to stop if you can. Under the attention of so many experts, you still want to earn that 200 million high-grade spirit stones? That's a fool's dream. Yu Qianzhou was shocked. This matter had already spread to the entire cultivation world? Analyzing Yin Baikong's character, he wasn't that generous to the point of announcing his family's dirty linen. Could it be that someone intentionally leaked this matter to see Yin Baikong make a fool of himself? How dare you ruin my plans? I'll deal with you when I'm free. He immediately set his sights on the Lord of Dian Kingdom, Hua Zongming. Thousands of thoughts ran through his mind, but his expression was somewhat confused as he asked, Why don't I understand what you're saying? Who is Yin Baikong? Why would I kidnap his grandson? You can't just spout nonsense without any evidence. Heh, are you not going to admit it? Nongzhu revealed an expression that said he overestimated himself and said, Tomorrow is the day to pay the ransom. The location is already known by everyone. Facing hundreds of demigod stage experts, even if you get the spirit stones, do you think you can still escape? I guarantee that you won't be able to hide. I appreciate your kindness, but this matter really wasn't done by me. Yu Qianzhou waved his fan and sighed. Although I, Yu Qianzhou, am not a gentleman, those who have met me know that I never lie. Everyone is full of praise for my character. I have the courage to admit whatever I do, so there's really no need for me to lie to you. If it was really done by me, I would definitely do it openly. Nonsense. Nongzhu waved her hand and interrupted him. She instantly rolled her eyes at him and sneered, Don't boast about your character. I've heard from Ze that you are a big liar. No matter where he goes, he doesn't care whether others approve of him or not. He first praises his own character to the point of blooming flowers, but behind the scenes, he always does such sneaky things. Hearing this, Furong glared at Nongzhu angrily. How dare she talk about her man like this? Zhang Pang, who was at the side, lowered his head and pretended not to hear anything. His master's ability to lie without blinking made him feel inferior. He hesitated, not knowing if he should learn this skill or not. Ze. Yu Qianzhou gritted his teeth and said, She follows me, and I provide her with good food and drinks every day. I didn't expect that she would dare to slander me behind my back. Well, when we meet, I'll teach you a lesson. Nongzhu's face instantly darkened. She sneered and said, How do you want to teach her a lesson? Come on, tell me. A faint murderous aura spread out, and a flock of birds on the trees in the courtyard suddenly flew away in fright. In the blink of an eye, the whole courtyard became terrifyingly quiet, shrouded by an aura that made people's hearts palpitate. With just one sentence, Yu Qianzhou poked Nongzhu's reverse scale. Furong and Zhang Pang were shocked. They had never encountered such a majestic and terrifying aura. Only now did they realize how terrifying the person in front of them was. Yu Qianzhou was slightly stunned. He immediately thought of the scene when Nongzhu risked her life to save Ze in Shuntian Island. He secretly cursed his bad luck. Why bother with this pair of father and daughter? He just needed to make his own fortune. With a plan in mind, he snorted and said, Of course I'll teach her a lesson. It's impossible for me to teach her animal play. Want to learn? You can either figure it out yourself, or let her find my master herself. He seemed to be unwilling to admit defeat, but only he knew that he had already admitted defeat. Furong and Zhang Pang were attracted by the master he mentioned. Nongzhu's face instantly brightened up, and her mouth turned into a semicircle. The threatening murderous aura in the courtyard just now disappeared in a blink of an eye. He nodded and said, This is the matter of you juniors. I won't interfere. His expression became much more relaxed. He was a veteran in the field of love. He already felt that Ze had developed a kind of dependence on Yu Qianqiu. If this dependence was allowed to develop, it would be out of control. The only way was to nip it in the bud. In fact, he also understood that it was impossible to keep his daughter by his side forever. The key was that as a father, he only wanted to find a reliable person for his daughter. This request was not too much. Nongzhu also seriously considered and observed Yu Qianqiu, but she found that this guy was too adventurous. The wild nature in his bones made people feel that he could destroy the world. He did all kinds of unimaginable things, but there was nothing he did not dare to do. He was simply making enemies everywhere. It was fine if Bai Chongqun was here, but what if he was gone in the future? Who could protect him? Who could be lucky all his life? Therefore, Nongzhu felt that it was a very dangerous thing to entrust his daughter to Yu Qianqiu. Maybe she would become a widow one day. He did not expect his daughter's future husband to be very powerful in the cultivation world, but he hoped that he could accompany his daughter to live a peaceful and happy life. He thought that this request was not too much. Now hearing Yu Qianqiu's words, he was greatly relieved. It didn't matter whether he taught his daughter animal play or not. It didn't matter even if she didn't learn it for the rest of her life. As long as you stay away from my daughter. Chapter 478. Yu Qianqiu was just giving himself a way out. He didn't know what Nongzhu was thinking. I will stay here for a few more days. You have a good relationship with the one family. Please help me inform them so that they won't think that I lied to them. Yu Qianqiu didn't bother to be polite to Nongzhu and gave her an order. In fact, Nongzhu was a very easygoing person and didn't care much. But she said strangely, "You lied to them and you still have the face to continue living here?" Then she suddenly realized, "I see. You haven't gotten the ransom yet. Are you going to leave after getting the spirit stones?" "No matter what you say, I solemnly declare that I, Yu Qianqiu, am not as bad as you think." Yu Qianqiu pointed at Zhang Peng and said, "He has taken a fancy to the princess of the Dayong nation. He borrowed the identity of the Bai Wan nation to participate in this competition to find a son-in-law. For some reason, he rejected the competition. When the competition is over, we will leave. It's not what you think." Zhang Peng, who was silent, almost bit his tongue. "Master, it was you who arranged for me to go. How did it turn into me liking the princess of Dayong Kingdom?" Nongzhu glanced at Zhang Peng and said, "What's so good about being the prince's son-in-law? Hey, it's a waste if you don't cultivate it." Nongzhu walked around Zhang Peng and looked at him carefully. But he was just looking and had no interest in taking in disciples. Even Nongzhu couldn't see through Zhang Peng's cultivation. This made Yu Qianqiu more confident about the efficacy of the restraining breath pill. Yu Qianqiu said expressionlessly, "To each his own." What he meant was, "What do you care? Since we met, I'll go and join in the fun." Nongzhu said indifferently. In fact, she suspected that Yu Qianqiu was up to something and wanted to go and see. "Up to you," Yu Qianqiu said as he laid down on the swing and pretended to sleep. Nongzhu smirked and turned to leave. Before he left, he gave Hibiscus a few more glances and discovered that she was also a mortal. He was truly speechless. It seemed like this fellow had mortal fetishes and liked to mingle with mortals. But it was none of his business. After Nongzhu found Wen Rue and the others and learned that there was indeed a competition to select the emperor's son-in-law, she decided to stay for a few days. Instead, he made up his mind to stay in the same courtyard as Yu Qianqiu. He had to observe him carefully to see what he was up to. In this embassy, Wen Chongqing was probably the most depressed one. He didn't expect to meet a liar, and the liar actually made an emperor wish to him. In addition to being depressed, his thoughts fell on the serious Nongzhu, hoping to find a chance to get close to her. Hipster, on the other hand, was a bit better. She was just a bit disappointed. Although she had been bullied by Yu Qianqiu for nothing, and he had even promised her the dream of eternal youth, she had indeed fallen for Farong. She had a high status since she was a child and didn't have any real friends. It could be said that she was afraid of loneliness. However, Hibiscus made her see the hope of being friends. When Nongzhu returned to the small courtyard, she saw Yu Qianqiu lying on the swing leisurely. She immediately walked over and said angrily, "Don't you know how to respect your elders? Move aside. Disrespectful old man." Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and jumped off the swing. He said to Zhang Peng, "You don't need to guard here anymore. Go back to the house and rest." After saying that, he directly pulled Hibiscus back to the house. Nongzhu lay on the swing proudly and found that it was indeed more comfortable. He immediately made a decision in his heart. After returning to the South Sea purple bamboo forest, he would also get this thing. Although he seemed to be lying on the swing with his eyes closed, in fact, his divine sense had already enveloped the entire small courtyard. Tomorrow was the day to pay the ransom. Now, even if a master at the last stage of soul transformation broke in, he would not be able to escape from his divine sense. He wanted to see how this fellow could sneak out. Was it really as he said, that the kidnapping of Yin Baikong's grandson had nothing to do with him? However, he kept watch until the sky turned dark, and the three of them did not come out. Nongzhu was slightly alert, and his divine sense quickly invaded the room to check. However, what he saw made Nongzhu's face turn red. This damned fellow was actually making love with that woman. He quickly withdrew his divine sense and looked into Zhang Peng's room. When he found that Zhang Peng was also there, he felt at ease and closed his eyes, quietly controlling the entire courtyard. The next day, in the sky above Deyang City, a series of rapid-flying sounds could be heard. All the targets were gathered at a certain place outside the city. The entire city's residents did not know what was going on. Only the cultivators knew that these were people with extremely high cultivation levels flying across the sky. Nongzhu squinted and looked at the sky. He really wanted to fly into the sky to watch the show, but he gritted his teeth and decided to watch Yu Qianqiu to death. He did not believe that this matter had nothing to do with Yu Qianqiu. His divine sense quickly swept across Yu Qianqiu's room. A man and a woman were still sleeping soundly on the bed. It seemed that they had overindulged in debauchery. As time passed, Nongzhu was as anxious as ants scratching his heart. Such a big show was not far from the city, but he could not see it. Of course it was not far for him, but for ordinary people, it would take them half a day to get there. At this time, when Rue entered the courtyard and came to the swing, he bowed slightly and said, "Sir, it's almost time. Why don't we go together?" No, I want to keep an eye on this guy," Nongzhu deliberately shouted. He wanted to tell Yu Qianqiu clearly that as long as he was here today, Yu Qianqiu had to tell the truth, and there was no way he could sneak away. When Rue was a little confused. Since he came all the way here, didn't he want to see how this matter would end? Why didn't he go? Nongzhu's seniority was higher than him, so when Rue could not say anything more, he immediately cupped his hands and said, "Then when Rue will go and have a look first. If there is any result, I will tell you when I come back." As soon as he finished his words, there was another whistling sound in the sky. He looked up and immediately flew away. As soon as when Rue left, Nongzhu quickly checked the room again. The woman had already gotten up and was dressing up at the dressing table, while Yu Qianqiu was still sleeping soundly on the bed. Nongzhu immediately transmitted a message to him. "Boy, you have slept for almost a whole day. Don't you want to go out and exercise?" Who knew that Yu Qianqiu's eyes would open wide and he would raise his head and shout, "Why are you so noisy? You peeping Tom. Have you never seen a man sleeping with a woman?" His voice was so loud that everyone in the embassy could probably hear him. "Good, you dare to be rude to me. Let me tell you, as long as I am here today, don't even think about leaving this courtyard." Nongzhu sneered and transmitted a message to him. Her divine sense controlled the whole courtyard tightly. Dozens of miles west of Deyang City, there was a desolate valley deep in the mountains. It was originally a desolate place, but today, there were probably thousands of people gathered around the valley. At first, there were some people hiding, afraid that they would ruin Yin Baikong's plan. Later on, more and more people gathered. In the end, everyone stood out openly. Mountain peaks, treetops, cliffs, and other places were filled with people. It was simply overcrowded. The law does not punish the masses. Everyone believed that no matter how arrogant Yin Baikong was, he would not make everyone his enemy, right? Hundreds of soul-severing stage cultivators hovering in the air looked at each other speechlessly after seeing the situation below. With so many people guarding here, would the kidnappers still dare to come for the ransom? Moreover, looking at the situation around them, it seemed that there were still people rushing over. The instigators, Hua Zongming and the other 5 exchanged glances. It seemed that the news had spread far and wide. They did not expect that besides the soul-severing stage cultivators, there were still so many people who dared to come and watch Yin Baikong. Not long after, a sharp whistling sound pierced through the air. Before anyone could react, the black-robed, white-haired Yin Baikong had already appeared in front of everyone. Such a fast speed had indeed shocked everyone. They all secretly thought that a soul-severing late-stage expert was indeed extraordinary. He was indeed not someone that ordinary experts could compare to. Yin Baikong's cold eyes swept across the surroundings. His expression was truly not good, especially when he saw the group of people below. His face twitched uncontrollably. They simply did not know the meaning of death. Their cultivation was not that great, yet they dared to come and join in the fun. Yin Baikong immediately laughed evilly and said, "Everyone really gave me face. I will remember this face." His gaze was like a sharp blade, causing the people below to lower their heads. None of the people below dared to look directly at him. From the meaning behind his words, it was clear that he wanted to remember the faces of those who came to join in the fun and find an opportunity to take revenge. However, no matter how high Yin Baikong's cultivation was, it was impossible for him to remember the faces of so many people below. It was even more impossible for him to take revenge on them one by one. After all, not everyone was a rogue cultivator. Most of them had the backing of the cultivation world of various countries. They were not people that he could casually take revenge on just because he wanted to. His words were indeed a bit more threatening. Seeing the group of people below lower their heads because of his words, Yin Baikong finally felt a bit more comfortable in his heart. He found a bit of a sense of superiority. He looked around and waited for the kidnappers to appear. However, he was immediately stunned. He also had the same doubts as everyone else. With so many people gathered here, would the kidnappers really appear? Wouldn't they be a bit too daring? Yin Baikong even suspected that his grandson was already dead. It was purely the kidnappers who wanted to embarrass him and deliberately make fun of him. Just as his expression was uncertain, a loud rumble suddenly came from the valley. Everyone was slightly startled and quickly looked over. At the foot of the valley, on the side of the mountain wall that was originally intact, a 2-meter square stone slab suddenly fell down. A cave suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. "Hey! Look, there seems to be some words on that stone slab." A soul formation stage cultivator in the sky suddenly pointed at the stone slab and said. Everyone looked at it with rapt attention. Sure enough, there seemed to be words on the stone slab. However, everyone was standing too high and the words were too small, so they couldn't see clearly. Yin Baikong, who was in the sky, instantly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he was already standing in front of the cave in front of the mountain wall. Without hesitation, he quickly released his divine sense into the cave. This cave was obviously newly dug. It wasn't deep, only about 20 meters. However, there was a turn in the middle, so people couldn't see the bottom at a glance. But for a soul formation stage cultivator, this wasn't a problem at all. With a casual sweep of his divine sense, he was able to clearly see the situation inside. Yin Baikong frowned. There was nothing in this cave. It was empty. His gaze quickly fell on the stone slab beside him and checked the contents on it. The group of soul formation stage cultivators had already lowered their altitude in the air until they could see clearly. Many of them softly said, "Yin Baikong, if you don't want to deliberately kill your grandson, don't rush into the cave. Obediently stand outside the cave and throw the spirit stones I want into the innermost part. With your cultivation, it shouldn't be a difficult task. As long as the number isn't wrong, you can immediately see your lively and unharmed grandson." The surrounding cultivators didn't dare to approach. They also didn't know what was written on it. The group of soul formation stage cultivators looked at each other in dismay. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Not only was this kidnapper bold, but he was also very experienced and professional. It didn't seem like this was his first time doing something like this. They then looked at Yin Baikong and shook their heads speechlessly. This guy was famous in the cultivation world for scheming against people. They didn't think that he would have such a day. Yin Baikong looked at the words on the stone slab. Not only was he not angry, his brows furrowed into a deep groove. He thought to himself, the cave was completely empty. There wasn't a single person inside. Even if he threw the spirit stones in, no one would take them. Could it be that he was playing with me? No, Yin Baikong's divine sense quickly swept through the stone slab. This stone slab was at least a few hundred kilograms. It definitely wouldn't have fallen down for no reason. He didn't sense any strong airflow just now. It was obvious that someone had pushed it down from the inside. There was someone inside just now. Yin Baikong's eyes slightly narrowed. His divine sense quickly searched the inside of the cave. However, after searching every corner of the cave, he discovered that there was no possibility of anyone hiding inside. He even used his incomparably tyrannical divine sense to knock on every side of the cave wall. However, he still couldn't find any hidden holes. The group of soul formation stage cultivators above did not know the situation inside the cave. Thus, they couldn't understand what he was hesitating about. What the hell? Yin Baikong's eyes narrowed into slits. He thought to himself, I want to see what kind of divine being would be able to take something from under my nose. He reached out and took out 2 storage pouches. With a light toss, the 2 pouches seemed to be carried by a pair of invisible hands. They slowly flew into the cave. Then, they made a turn and fell to the ground after reaching the bottom of the cave. Originally, 1 storage pouch could have contained everything. However, he purposely split them into 2. His goal was to create a slight difference in quantity. Don't look down on this slight difference. 4 people at their level of cultivation. A slight difference at a crucial moment could be a fatal difference. He believed that the person who dared to take advantage of him would definitely not have a cultivation lower than his. Thus, he made some preparations for the details. Ha! Yin Baikong suddenly let out a muffled groan in disbelief. His eyes widened. His divine sense had followed the storage pouches into the cave. He had always been vigilant of his surroundings. However, the moment the storage pouches fell to the ground, he suddenly felt another person's divine sense fluctuation. Before he could figure out where it came from, the 2 storage pouches on the ground mysteriously disappeared. What's wrong with Yin Baikong? What did he see? Why is he so shocked? The group of soul formation stage cultivators above whispered to each other. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid of being blamed by Yin Baikong, they would have already gone down to investigate. They didn't see the situation inside, so how could they understand how shocked Yin Baikong was right now? To be exact, Yin Baikong was so shocked that he couldn't speak. His face was filled with horror. To be able to take away 2 storage pouches right in front of his eyes was simply unimaginable. He had seen Bai Chongchun's cultivation before. However, even if Bai Chongchun personally came, with others blocking the cave entrance, it was impossible for Bai Chongchun to take away the things in front of him without anyone noticing. Heavens! Could it be that there's someone in this world whose cultivation is higher than Bai Chongchun's? Or is it an immortal descending from the heavens to target me? Yin Baikong swallowed his saliva with difficulty. At this moment, in the cave where Yin Wufeng and his family were imprisoned in Utopia, Yu Qianqiu, who was dressed in black and had his face masked, quickly injected his divine sense into the 2 storage pouches. After a while, he nodded with satisfaction and laughed at the wounded Yin Wufeng. Your grandfather, Yin Baikong, is indeed a man of his word. 200 million upper-grade spiritual stones are not a small amount. You're rich. As expected of the owner of the World Trading Company. Haha. He put them away. Yin Wufeng looked at the whip marks on his youngest son's body and said angrily, Who are you? Since you know that my grandfather is the owner of the World Trading Company, how dare you torture my family? Aren't you afraid that my grandfather will settle the score with you? Yin Baikong is nothing to me. Yu Qianqiu sneered. Seeing that Yin Wufeng was about to bite, he waved his hand and said, This guy is itching for a beating. I'll give him a good memory before I leave. Beat him. Wham! A masked man in black waved the rattan in his hand, causing Yin Wufeng to wail and roll on the ground. Her family of women and children were so frightened that they burst into tears. How dare you talk back to me? You don't even have the awareness of being a prisoner. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand again and said, Forget it. A few lashes will do. It'll be bad if he dies. Yin Baikong will scold me for not keeping my word. Damn it. I'm the most trustworthy person. Yin Wufeng was unrepentant. He glared at Yu Qianqiu fiercely. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and said, Don't look at me. Your grandfather has paid the ransom and will send you back soon. You should take care of your wife and children. If your grandfather refuses to pay the ransom, your family will have to part forever. What do you mean? Yin Wufeng's eyes widened as he roared. Nothing. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and said. Your grandfather has paid the ransom, so of course I have to send you back. But I'm only paying the ransom for you. Do you understand what I mean? Despicable. Shameless. Yin Wufeng roared. You said you'll let my family go once you get the ransom. You're not keeping your word. Yu Qianqiu's gaze turned cold as he waved his hand lightly. Wham! The masked man beside him immediately lashed out with a whip, causing Yin Wufeng, who had just struggled to get up, to scream and roll on the ground. I've always been a man of my word. I'm a man of my word and I'm a man of my word. Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, Raise your arrogant head and think about it. I've always said that I'll let you go once I get the ransom. When did I say that I'll let your family go? I hate it when people slander me. Yin Wufeng trembled with anger. He carefully thought about what the other party had said and it was true. The other party did not say that he would let his family go once he got the ransom. He only promised to let him go. However, the other party's confusing words were clearly hinting to him that you represented his family. Now that the other party had gone back on his word and his family was in the other party's hands, what else could he do? What do you want so that you'll let my family go? Yin Wufeng roared. Well, I'll help you think about it. Yu Qianqiu turned around with his hands behind his back before he suddenly nodded and said, What do you think about this? I'll send you back first and you can ask your grandfather for another 100 million upper-grade spiritual stones as ransom. Once I get the money, I'll immediately let your family go. Yin Wufeng was completely speechless as he stared at Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, Don't look at me with such resentment. This price is already very fair. Think about it. You're worth 200 million upper-grade spiritual stones. Don't tell me that all your wives and children aren't even worth 100 million to you. Will you go back on your word when the time comes? Yin Wufeng gritted his teeth and spat out word by word. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, No, no. Listen carefully this time. As long as I get another 100 million superior-grade spirit stones as ransom, I guarantee that I will return your entire family to you safe and sound, allowing you to reunite with your family. All right, I promise you, Yin Wufeng gritted his teeth and said, but I also have a favor to ask of you. I hope you can promise me. Yu Qianqiu was slightly stunned and said, Tell me first and see if I can do it. I won't go back on my word. Perhaps I won't be able to get 100 million upper-grade spiritual stones in a short period of time, but I'll get it sooner or later. Yin Wufeng turned to look at his wife and children behind him and said, I beg you to give me some time. Yu Qianqiu looked at him with a burning gaze and sighed in his heart. At least he's a man with a conscience. He's not as bad as Yin Baikong was described in the Jade Archive. But I'm not bad either. I've only given you some physical pain and a little shock. I didn't do anything to you, and I haven't taken any of your lives yet. He remembered that in order to use the captured cultivators to scare this family, he had already killed them. Yu Qianqiu coughed and walked over to Yin Wufeng. He squatted down and patted Yin Wufeng's shoulder and said, Don't blame me. Your grandfather, Yin Baikong, did something even worse than me. I'm only doing this to seek justice for those who died. I'll agree to your request, but I'll only give you 10 days. I won't wait after that. Yin Wufeng nodded silently. Yu Qianqiu smiled and told him a few things to note when handing over the ransom. Then, he placed a finger on Yin Wufeng's neck and knocked him out. Then, he grabbed him and carried him out of the cave. The women and children in the cave immediately cried non-stop, as if they were going to be separated by life and death. Little did they know that Yu Qianqiu had already made up his mind. Even if he couldn't get a single spiritual stone, he would still release them when the time came. On the other side, Yin Baikong saw that the 2 storage pouches had disappeared for a long time, but the other party still hadn't handed over the hostages. He subconsciously thought that he had been fooled. He was trembling with anger, but there was nothing he could do. It was his fault for not even noticing the other party's men. It was simply embarrassing if word got out. Chapter 479. His hands that were crossed over his abdomen slowly opened up, and his 10 fingers slowly opened up into claws. A faintly discernible qi began to circulate between his fingers, gathering into a faint light. Yin Baikong's black robe fluttered without any wind. He was like a motionless mountain, but it gave people the feeling that something terrifying was brewing in his body that was about to explode. Not good. Yin Baikong seems to be making a move. The soul-forming stage cultivator at the top had just spoken, but the others had already soared into the sky. They had obviously noticed it as well. What a joke. With Baikong's cultivation, once he made a move, wouldn't it be a waste if they stood too close to be affected? The surrounding cultivators also noticed that something was wrong. Seeing the group of soul-forming stage cultivators in the sky fleeing, how could they not know the terror of Baikong's eruption? In an instant, figures flew everywhere, each faster than the last. Baikong, who was extremely furious, wanted to make a move. He wanted to destroy the cave in one fell swoop to vent the anger in his heart. However, just as the boundless true essence in his body was about to circulate, a weak moan suddenly came from the cave before it could be released. Baikong was slightly startled. His divine sense was like lightning, filling the entire cave in an instant. Wufeng, who was riddled with injuries, had appeared out of nowhere. He was looking around blankly as he climbed up, holding onto the cave wall as he walked step by step towards the light outside. The powerful aura that he had accumulated disappeared in a blink of an eye. Baikong's forehead was covered in a thin layer of sweat. His opponent's cultivation was too high, not just a little higher than his. He was practically treating him like a blade of grass, toying with him however he wanted. It was truly frightening. Baikong had never been so afraid before. Even when he was facing the world's #1 expert, Bai Chongqun, he had never felt so uneasy. The anger that had just been ignited was instantly extinguished. His opponent had completely ignored his existence. Baikong did not dare to act rashly, because the consequences of destroying the cave would be unpredictable. The group of soul-forming stage cultivators in the sky could not help but exclaim in surprise. They had just noticed that Baikong's aura was getting stronger, and it looked like he was on the verge of exploding. Why did he suddenly retract his aura? A person walked out of the cave in a swaying manner, immediately attracting everyone's attention. After not seeing strong light for a few days, Wufeng subconsciously covered his eyes when he approached the cave entrance. After a while, he let go and saw the black-robed Baikong standing outside the cave. He immediately ran over. "Grandfather!" With a sorrowful cry, Wufeng knelt on the ground and kowtowed while crying. Wufeng is unfilial to have alarmed grandfather's presence. "It's good that you're back. It was grandfather who implicated you." Baikong's face revealed a rare trace of benevolence, but when he saw his grandson's ragged clothes and the lacerated flesh, he couldn't suppress his anger, causing his brows to tremble incessantly. He then shouted angrily towards the cave. "Who exactly are you? With your cultivation, why are you torturing a mortal?" The sound was like an invisible sharp blade, scraping the layers of rocks that had been peeled off the walls of the cave, causing them to fall to the ground. The spirit-severing cultivators in the air were all bewildered. They didn't know just how high the cultivation of the person inside the cave was to be able to cause Baikong to be so fearful. Even though he was so angry, he was still able to restrain himself and not make a move. Seeing that no one in the cave replied, Baikong looked around. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he knew that if he didn't act tough today, he would become a laughingstock for bullying the weak and fearing the strong. One must know that it was not shameful to submit to the world's #1 expert, Bai Chongqun, because no one dared to defy him. However, if he were to submit to this nameless person, then his, Baikong's, reputation would be ruined today. With this thought in mind, he couldn't care less about the other party's unfathomable cultivation. He shouted again, "Since you've come to me, then I, Baikong, will not shirk my responsibility. Do you dare to come out and fight me?" The people in the air and the surroundings immediately whispered to each other. Baikong had taken the initiative to issue a challenge. The show that everyone had been looking forward to was finally about to happen. It had been a long time since they saw a spirit-severing expert make a move. However, after waiting for a long time, the thing that everyone was looking forward to did not happen. The mysterious expert still did not show himself. Instead, they heard Wufeng's pleading voice. "Grandpa, please calm down. Your granddaughter-in-law and great-grandsons are in his hands. Please save them, Grandpa. I'll send you to the side first. It's dangerous here. It's not a place for you to stay." Baikong did not care about what he said. He looked around vigilantly and raised his hand to send him away. Unexpectedly, Wufeng knelt down and hugged his leg, begging again, "Grandpa, please save them. Please save them. If you don't agree, they're dead." "Bastard! We don't even know where they are. How am I supposed to save them? Yin Bai Kong reprimanded. Spirit stones are enough. He said that if I pay another 100 million high-grade spirit stones as ransom, he'll release my family. Yin Wufeng hugged his leg and refused to let go. You actually believe this kind of nonsense? Yin Bai Kong had the urge to slap him to death. It would have been fine if he did not say it, but now that he mentioned it, he only remembered that he paid 200 million high-grade spirit stones for the release of one person. Now, he wanted another 100 million. This was simply intolerable. This was too much. The group of soul formation realm cultivators in the air were paying attention to every movement below. The conversation between the grandfather and grandson left them speechless. This kidnapper was too greedy. He was not satisfied with just 200 million and released the people in batches. He even wanted to get 100 million. Did he think spirit stones were rocks that could be picked up as he pleased? Grandpa, I beg you, try again. He promised me that he'll release everyone after he gets the spirit stones. Yin Wufeng begged. Let go. Yin Bai Kong said in a low voice, if you don't let go, I'll kill you too. No, that person is ruthless. If we don't get the spirit stones, they'll die. Yin Wufeng cried bitterly. Grandpa, for the sake of my dead grandma, for the sake of grandma, try again. Just one more time. Yin Bai Kong's expression froze. The image of that gentle woman appeared in his mind. He had countless women in his life. Due to his high cultivation, he had lived for too long. In the end, he could only watch as those women aged. After the women's beauty faded, they naturally could not attract his interest. Each and every one of them was fed well and lived well, waiting to die. He could not even remember how many he had. Only that woman, who was also his last woman, had died an unnatural death. Instead, her most beautiful face had been forever engraved in his heart. After that, Yin Bai Kong knew that he had a limited lifespan. Even if he gave birth to a child with cultivation talent, he would not have the time to nurture them. Thus, he gave up on the thought of sowing more children. Therefore, among all the women, the last one was the woman he thought he loved the most. This woman gave birth to a son for him. When the son was in his prime, he followed in his mother's footsteps and died a violent death. The son left behind another son, which was the grandson kneeling in front of him. Yin Wufeng could be said to be the only flesh and blood of the woman he loved the most in his memory. Yin Wufeng's flesh and blood were naturally that woman's bloodline. Humans lived for too long. When the woman that left the deepest impression in his memory was suddenly brought up, Yin Bai Kong suddenly felt like he could not bear the burden. His breathing became hurried. According to the soul formation expert's estimation of Yin Bai Kong's character, him being able to fork out 200 million to save his grandson was already a great kindness. How could he allow someone to extort him again and again? However, the result was surprising. Yin Bai Kong silently took out a storage bag and threw it by his feet. Yin Wufeng picked up the storage bag and kowtowed. He then turned around and crawled into the cave. After entering, he realized that the cave was a dead end. He anxiously searched around at the end. When he recalled the masked man's words, he hurriedly placed the storage bag on the ground and looked around, hoping that the masked man would fulfill his promise. Yin Bai Kong's divine sense had been following his grandson all the way to the innermost part of the cave. This time, he used his divine sense to seal the entire cave tightly. He had to find out where the other party's divine sense came from. Who knows, he might be able to find out where the other party was hiding. However, something unexpected happened. That strand of divine sense suddenly appeared. Yin Bai Kong's divine sense quickly trapped the other party's divine sense. However, not only did the divine sense come without a trace, it also disappeared without a trace. Just like that, the storage bag on the ground disappeared into thin air. How was this possible? Yin Bai Kong was dumbfounded. Even if someone with a cultivation as high as Bai Chong Chun used teleportation, with his divine sense sealed, he would still be able to find out where they were going. What kind of cultivation was this? Just with his divine sense, he had already surpassed the realm of teleportation? Yin Bai Kong immediately felt his back break out in cold sweat. If he was not clear, he could still make wild guesses. If he was too clear, he would be scared out of his wits. One had to know that even teleportation could only be done if there was a path. Now that the other party's divine sense had already surpassed his previous knowledge, if the person was here personally, it would be hard to imagine how high his cultivation would be. Yin Baikong's back was drenched in cold sweat. He had never heard of such a divine ability. Bang! Suddenly, there was an explosion from a faraway mountain. Yin Baikong was startled awake and looked up. A ray of light rose into the sky and exploded into specks of light. Hua Zongming, who was in the soul formation stage group, frowned and said, "That's strange. Why would someone release fireworks in this barren mountain? Everything that happened today is strange. Let's go take a look." The 5 people beside him quickly followed him. The 6 of them landed on a mountain top and saw 8 to 9 unconscious women and children lying on the bare mountain top. Every one of them had whip marks on their bodies. There was a rock beside them with words written on it. "Yin Baikong, I am a man of my word. Take the money and release the people. Everything is settled. We will meet again if fate allows it." On top of the rock, there was a small black triangular flag fluttering in the wind. The golden word, hero, was exceptionally eye-catching. This action was very arrogant, as if it was mocking everyone. "We'll meet again if fate allows it?" Yin Baikong was probably going to vomit blood. Hua Zongming and the others looked at each other. "Yin Baikong, bring your grandson here. There are 9 unconscious women and children here. Let him see if they are his family members." Hua Zongming transmitted his voice to the direction of the valley far away. A moment later, the sound of breaking through the air could be heard. Yin Baikong was holding a transparent ball of light in one hand. It was Yin Wufeng inside. When the 2 of them landed, Hua Zongming asked, "Yin Wufeng, take a look and see if these are your family members?" "Yes, yes, yes." Yin Wufeng knelt down and picked up a 7 to 8-year-old child. He asked anxiously, "What happened to them? What's wrong? Grandpa, please save them." Yin Baikong didn't care about him at all. His gaze shifted from the few lines of words on the rock to the arrogant little flag. Xueqi shook her head and said to Yin Wufeng, "They are fine. They just temporarily fainted." A group of soul formation stage cultivators rushed over. After witnessing the scene, they were all speechless. They were thinking that Yin Baikong had lost a lot of face this time. He threw out 300 million upper-grade spirit stones, but he didn't even get to see the other party's face. They didn't even know who this hero was. It would be better not to provoke him in the future. Swoosh! Yin Baikong waved his palm. A powerful airflow surged and the rock with the words on it turned into dust. The black flag landed in his hand. He stared at the word hero on the flag with an ashen face. He didn't care if Yin Wufeng's family could withstand the aftershock of his palm strike. Fortunately, for the sake of the children, Xueqi became compassionate. She flashed in front of them in time and pushed out a light wave with her slender palm. Otherwise, Yin Baikong's 300 million upper-grade spirit stones would have been in vain. He would only be redeeming a pile of minced meat. Suddenly, Yin Baikong soared into the sky, shaking the clouds in the sky. His voice spread in all directions. "Sneaky hiding, using a few mortals to make a fuss. What kind of ability is that? If you have the guts, come out and fight me." He was currently muddle-headed from anger. He didn't care if the other party was a peerless expert or not. His voice reverberated in the mountains. Birds and beasts fled in fright, but no one came out to answer him. Everyone looked at each other and thought, maybe the kidnapper has already left. Ah! Yin Baikong let out a long angry roar. His figure suddenly rose and fell like a black shadow, shooting between heaven and earth. In an instant, an earth-shattering rumble resounded, causing the earth to tremble. Yin Baikong's figure crashed into 6 towering mountains in a row. The 6 connected mountains were flattened in a split second. The mountain springs were still and the streams were nowhere to be seen. In the blink of an eye, they were covered by the soil that filled the mountain ravines, forming a vast flat land. The surrounding mountains were also affected. The towering trees were like helpless withered grass, uprooted by the strong airflow and flying in all directions. A perfectly good old forest in the mountains was forcefully changed in an instant. The spirit-severing experts also released their protective chi to defend themselves. Hua Zongming naturally wouldn't let anything happen to Yin Wufeng. If this crazy guy turned around and found an excuse to cause trouble, it would be troublesome. He immediately formed a circle with the other 5 to protect the family. Although everyone was shocked by this spirit-severing expert's power, they weren't too surprised. After all, they had seen Bai Chongqun in action. The world's #1 expert was someone who could fly to the heavens and use lightning as a sword. He was even more terrifying when he went crazy. Yin Baikong was much weaker than him. Therefore, everyone's mental endurance was no longer the same as before. However, to the dumbfounded Yin Wufeng, he only found out today how powerful a person like his grandfather was. He also understood how much his grandfather had suffered today. This was the action of a person who had nowhere to vent his anger. The suffering that his family had suffered had been thrown to the back of his mind. Chapter 480. Yin Baikong had caused such a huge commotion that the entire Deyang city could clearly feel the tremors. The commoners were in a state of panic, not knowing what had happened. Nongzhu, who was lying on the swing, suddenly appeared a few meters away from the swing. With a solemn expression, she stared at the direction of the source of the tremors and murmured, "Could it be that Yin Baikong and the kidnappers fought?" To be able to cause such a commotion while fighting with Yin Baikong, the cultivation of the kidnappers must not be ordinary. Just as she was hesitating whether or not she should go and take a look, she realized that the direction had become peaceful again. She couldn't help but mutter to herself in surprise, "The winner has been decided so quickly?" With a creak, the closed door was opened. Yu Qianqiu ran out with his upper body naked. He shouted at the direction of the tremors, "Who is it? Who is it? Did you have nothing better to do? Causing such a huge commotion. Can't you let me sleep?" He stared at Nongzhu for a while, then rolled his eyes. With a paw sound, he closed the door and retreated back into the room. Nongzhu was stunned and speechless. He was very sure that this brat had been staying in the room the whole time. If that was the case, it was indeed his judgment that was wrong. The kidnapping of Yin Baikong's grandson was really not done by this brat. Yu Qianqiu happily returned to the room. He hugged Farong, who was also smiling, and started to fondle her. He took advantage of her, causing her to pant and pant. As a result, Yu Qianqiu's beastly nature erupted. He directly pushed Farong onto the bed, and the two of them started to make love again. Nongzhu's divine sense went in to take a glance, then immediately retracted it as if she was escaping. She spat on the ground and cursed, "This brat is really a breeding pig. He has already done it several times since yesterday. Isn't he afraid that his life will be shortened?" How could he know that Yu Qianqiu knew that although he was a playboy, he would not be a pervert? He would definitely not watch others do such things. The reason why he hid in the room and fought with the hibiscus demon was to prevent Nongzhu's divine sense from invading the room and monitoring him, so that he could seize the opportunity to escape. In fact, when Hibiscus got out of bed to dress up, he had already left. The person lying on the bed was just a person he had found from Utopia who had a similar figure and was wearing the same mask to pretend to be asleep. His goal was to prove that he had always been present. Taking advantage of this gap, he successfully completed his task. As soon as he returned, he immediately ran out and shouted to prove that he was still alive. Looking at Nongzhu's dumbfounded look, it was obvious that he had been fooled by her. He was happy in his heart, and there was a beautiful woman beside him. Naturally, he wanted to have a good time. After a long time, Yu Qianqiu, who was in a good mood, opened the door and walked out dressed like a playboy. Nongzhu glanced at him and snorted, "Inhumane thing." Yu Qianqiu did not bother to pay attention to her. He climbed onto the swing of the rattan chair and closed his eyes, looking like he was asking for a beating. Suddenly, there were a few sounds of people flying in the air. Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes and saw that there were 7 more people in the courtyard. He knew Wen Ruei, but he had never seen Hua Zongming and the other 5 people. He looked at the charming young woman and continued to close his eyes to sleep. Hua Zongming and the other 5 people also looked at Yu Qianqiu, and there was a trace of doubt in their eyes. They looked at him and then at Nongzhu, and found that the two of them were actually somewhat similar. Thinking of Nongzhu's playboy behavior in the past, it was very suspicious. "Is this your son?" Xueqi asked Nongzhu with a bitter expression. "Ah!" Nongzhu was stunned. She was quite shocked by this question. When she came to her senses, she pointed at Yu Qianqiu, whose eyes were wide open, and said, "Him? Is he my son? How is it possible? Is he worthy of being my son? Damn it!" Yu Qianqiu jumped high on the spot, and almost directly bounced off the swing. He pointed at Nongzhu and shouted, "Old thing, what are you talking about? Do you want to fight?" Then he scolded Xueqi, "Who are you, crazy woman? Nonsense! Why do you have the same character as this old thing?" Xueqi was stunned. Unexpectedly, she was not angry after being scolded. There was a touch of shyness on her face, and she stared at Nongzhu blankly. It seemed that the sentence, "Why do you have the same character as this old thing?" was very much what she wanted. If Yu Qianqiu said that they were like husband and wife, Xueqi would be even happier. "You brat, do you want to die?" Nongzhu rolled up her sleeves and looked at him fiercely. "You can try. As long as you can't kill me, I will burn your purple bamboo forest in the South Sea to ashes tomorrow." Yu Qianqiu opened the big fan with a swish, and a large group of rich and noble peonies was very dazzling. "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Before Nongzhu finished his words, Xueqi had already grabbed his sleeve and said softly, "Forget it. Why do you care about young people?" Being touched by her, Nongzhu immediately lost his temper and subconsciously withdrew his hand. Seeing this, Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and he thought to himself, "There is adultery. There is adultery." He waved the fan in his hand even more loudly. After hearing the conversation between the two, Hua Zongming and others looked at Yu Qianqiu in confusion. This brat dared to say that he would burn the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea. Obviously, he was also a cultivator. After a closer look, they found that they could not see through Yu Qianqiu's cultivation. They were suddenly shocked. When did such a master appear in the cultivation world? Why hadn't they seen him before? Hua Zongming asked Nongzhu in confusion. "Who is this young man? He looks unfamiliar. Why haven't I seen him before?" Nongzhu sneered and said, "Why are you surprised? Don't be fooled by this brat's illusion. This guy is so talented that no matter how high your cultivation is, you can't see through his cultivation. In fact, he is only at the Yuanying realm." Hua Zongming and others said, "Oh," and showed an expression of understanding. However, the doubt on their faces did not decrease. Just imagine, a cultivator at the Yuanying realm dared to talk to Nongzhu like this. He must have a powerful background. Humph. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly and showed Nongzhu a look that said, "You dare to expose me? Just wait and see." Nongzhu was naturally not afraid of his threat. She turned to them and asked, "Why are you here? Is there anything I can do for you?" Hua Zongming and others almost looked at Xueqi at the same time. She did not say that she wanted to come and see. Why would a group of masters at the Huashan realm come here? When Rui was also aware of this, he immediately cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I invited you to come and have a seat." Nongzhu followed their eyes and looked at Xueqi. She suddenly understood in her heart, but she pretended to know nothing. The atmosphere became a little strange. Yu Qianqiu looked at Nongzhu and Xueqi and snorted coldly, as if he knew everything. At this time, Furong walked out of the room quietly. She bowed slightly to them and pulled Yu Qianqiu, saying, "Yu Qianqiu, why didn't Wenqing come? Shall I go and find her?" Yu Qianqiu frowned and thought, "My fake identity has been exposed. She may not play with you anymore." Just as he opened his mouth to speak, he suddenly saw an old man opposite him shout at Furong, "What did you call him just now?" The three words, Yu Qianqiu, immediately made everyone's eyes focus on Yu Qianqiu. Furong's eyes immediately became a little flustered. Yu Qianqiu cursed inwardly. This last probably didn't turn around for a moment and accidentally called out. Nongzhu's expression also changed slightly. The person who shouted was Yan Ji from the Xueqi kingdom. Zi had told him that Yu Qianqiu had killed 2 foreign cultivators with the surname Yan in the 100 Flowers Valley. He knew that they were this old man's disciples. This was a big problem. "Speak!" Yan Ji shouted again. Nongzhu stood between them and smiled awkwardly. "Don't be impulsive. Let's talk it out." He was mainly responsible for this. If he hadn't come here, these soul formation cultivators wouldn't have come here. Otherwise, Yu Qianqiu's identity wouldn't have been exposed. Yu Qianqiu closed the fan in his hand and gently held Furong's hand, saying with a smile, "It's okay here. You go back to the room first." "I didn't mean it." Furong lowered her head and said, "I know. You go back first. Be a good girl." Yu Qianqiu smiled lightly. Seeing that he was fine, Furong felt much more at ease. She nodded and went back obediently. Zhang Peng, who came after hearing the noise, also retreated to protect Furong at his signal. Yu Qianqiu stared at Yan Ji and asked, "Who are you?" What right do you have to yell at my people? Yanji narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, I'm Yanji, a middle-stage soul formation cultivator from the Xueqi kingdom. That girl just called you Yu Qianqiu. Are you Yu Qianqiu from the Huaxia cultivation world? Yu Qianqiu put away the fan in his hand and rubbed off the human skin mask on his face. He threw it into his storage pouch and said expressionlessly, I am Yu Qianqiu. My name is Yu Qianqiu. Is there a problem? Since his identity had been exposed, he didn't need to wear the human skin mask anymore. They all looked at Nongzhu. They all knew that when Nongzhu's disciple, Ze, was in the Huaxia cultivation world, she hung out with this Yu Qianqiu. No wonder Nongzhu was with a nascent soul stage cultivator. They were old acquaintances. Yanji sneered and said, Yu Qianqiu, you must be familiar with Yan Cheng and Yan Feng, right? They are my disciples. What problem do you think there is? I was worried that I couldn't go to the Huaxia cultivation world to settle the score with you. I didn't expect you to come to me in person. That's great. Yu Qianqiu immediately understood. So he was the master of those two dead people. This was a big problem. It seemed that he had to get ready to leave. He nodded slightly and said, I understand what you mean. Your two disciples dueled with me, and in the end, they died at my hands. Today, you happen to meet me, so the master should go instead of the disciple, right? Brat, you have a sharp tongue. You want to kill me? You want me to let you go? Yanji's body was suffused with a faint killing intent. He snorted and said, Today, I will bully the weak. Don't think about leaving here alive. Yanji, don't be impulsive. Let's talk. Nongzhu cupped her hands and persuaded. He is just a junior. You don't need to do anything. You will lose face if this gets out. Nongzhu, what do you mean? Do you want to help this brat stop me? Yanji narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice. Hua Zongming also slowly stepped forward and said, Nongzhu, friendship is friendship, but this brat is from the Huaxia cultivation world. You promised not to interfere in the Huaxia cultivation world's affairs. Are you going to break your promise today? I think it's better to let Yanji solve this himself. You and I will not interfere. Chapter 481. So you and I don't need to interfere? Nongzhu asked with a sarcastic smile. The other party had inserted himself into the conversation, clearly warning him that if he interfered in the matter between Yu Qianqiu and Yanji, then he might have to intervene as well. It was understandable. The six of them had always been relying on each other in order to gain a foothold in the cultivation world. Hua Zongming was the owner of this place, so he had to be the first to speak. Hua Zongming, are you threatening me? Nongzhu still had a smile on her face, but her eyes were cold. Hua Zongming shook his head and said, Think what you want. Nongzhu, I just want to remind you that you won't interfere with the cultivation world of Huaxia. Of course I won't interfere with the cultivation world of Huaxia. Nongzhu pointed at Yu Qianqiu and said, If you want to, you can check it out. This guy has left the Huaxia Cultivation Alliance and fought with the Daluo sect before he left. Now that he has left the cultivation world of Huaxia, he is no longer a member of the cultivation world of Huaxia. So, I won't interfere with the cultivation world of Huaxia. Pu Taidong coughed and took a step forward, saying, Leaving the cultivation world of Huaxia doesn't mean he won't go back. Who knows if he's out for fun or something else? Pu Taidong, you've gone too far. Nongzhu waved her hand and pointed at the sky, saying, Most of the soul-forming stage masters in the world came from the cultivation world of Huaxia. According to what you said, Yin Baikong is probably a member of the cultivation world of Huaxia. They frowned and looked at each other. Yanji said coldly, Nongzhu, are you determined to go against us? I never want to go against anyone. I just want to live a free and unfettered life. You should know that, Nongzhu said lightly. Then she looked back at Yu Qianqiu, pulled out the bamboo flute from her waist, and gently stroked it in her hand, saying, But this guy exposed his identity in front of you because of me. I don't want to owe anyone anything. Otherwise, I won't feel at ease. Today, I will leave these words here. Before this kid leaves Deyong City, I will not let anyone touch him. Nongzhu, do you think you can protect him alone? Mu Sang snorted coldly. Nongzhu suddenly turned around and stared at him. She said word by word, I, Nongzhu, can travel around the world freely. Do you think that I only know how to play? My southern sea's purple bamboo forest has been able to stand tall in the cultivation world for so many years. Do you really think that it can be exchanged for being aloof from worldly affairs? Mu Sang was stunned by his words. There was one thing he had to admit. Although few people had seen Nongzhu fight, he had never heard of him losing in the hands of anyone in the cultivation world for so many years. This alone was enough to prove that the world-famous Master Nongzhu would definitely not be simple once he made a move. There was an iron law in the cultivation world, and that was, those who were famous did not live up to their name. In the cultivation world, the weak were prey to the strong. No one could last long by relying on a false reputation. For someone like Nongzhu, who had been free and unfettered in the cultivation world for so many years, he had never lost in the hands of anyone. How could he be so simple? Yu Qianqiu did not speak at the side. He looked at Nongzhu in a new light. He did not expect Nongzhu to protect him when he was facing 5 cultivators of the same level. This was completely different from Nongzhu, who was always at loggerheads with him. No wonder he was his master's old friend. He felt a little bit of respect for Nongzhu. Wen Rui looked at Yu Qianqiu in surprise. He had also heard of this guy here. It seemed that many people here had lost in his hands. It was said that the disciples of Bing Qingzi and Yin Baikong at the end of the crossing calamity stage had died in his hands, as well as the 2 disciples of Yan Ji in front of him. This guy really had a lot of enemies, and all of them were top figures. He actually dared to leave the cultivation world of Huaxia and come here. The One Clan was the only country that did not send people to the cultivation world of Huaxia. Because when Lanfeng had been in seclusion for many years, the other members of the One Clan did not dare to make decisions without his consent. Therefore, they did not participate in this matter. In this way, Wen Rui thought that the One Clan and Yu Qianqiu did not have any grievances. Of course, he did not know that Yu Qianqiu was Bai Chongqun's disciple. Otherwise, the grievances of the previous generation would inevitably involve the next generation. The atmosphere at the scene was a little strange. Yan Ji and the others were hesitating whether to take action or not. It was not because they were afraid of Nongzhu, but because they were worried about the person behind Nongzhu. Xueqi was the most embarrassed. If she had not pulled them here, this would not have happened. I have a compromise. I don't know if you are willing to listen? Xueqi braced herself and said, I'm all ears. Hua Zongming smiled. In fact, he was most unwilling to make a move here. Dian Kingdom was his territory, and Dian City was the most prosperous and densely populated place in Dian Kingdom. Based on the cultivation of these people, if they were to make a move, the people in his territory would be the ones who would suffer. Xueqi looked at Yan Ji and said, We are not in a hurry to solve this matter. Since Mr. Nongzhu said that he would not intervene after Yu Qianqiu leaves Daong City, it is better to wait for Yu Qianqiu to leave Daong City. What if he never leaves Daong City? Yan Ji sneered. Humph. Yu Qianqiu finally spoke. He raised his eyebrows and said, If I want to leave, how many people in the world can stop me? Nongzhu glanced at him and thought, You haven't learned your master's skills, but you have learned your master's arrogance. When are you going to leave? Hua Zongming asked with a smile. It was quite funny that he did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. When it is time to leave, I will leave, Yu Qianqiu replied. Yan Ji immediately mocked. What do you mean when it is time to leave? Once the news that you are in Daong City spreads, Bing Qingzi and Yin Baikong will come to settle accounts with you. In such a dangerous situation, I am afraid you will always have an excuse not to leave. Old man Yan Ji, you don't have to provoke me. Yu Qianqiu said proudly, You soul formation experts can't stay in Daong City every day. I have a word of advice for you. Don't send disciples at the Tribulation passing stage here, lest I kill more people. Yan Ji's face darkened. These words were a bit harsh. The 2 disciples who died in the hands of Yu Qianqiu were at the Tribulation passing stage. Pu Taidong snorted. Young people really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You are only at the nascent soul stage. How dare you speak so arrogantly? It's not that I'm speaking arrogantly. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. It's just that I think no cultivator below the soul formation stage is my match. If I am number 2, no one dares to be number 1. I have already experienced this when I was in the Huaxia cultivation world. In my eyes, no cultivator below the soul formation stage is an expert. Everyone's faces changed, including Xueqi and Wen Rui. These words were a provocation. It was clear that he did not care about cultivators below the soul formation stage. If it weren't for Nongzhu, they would have slapped him to death on the spot. Nongzhu rolled her eyes and was speechless. This guy was really arrogant. Once these words were spread, those who were not convinced would drown him with their spit. This was a challenge to the Tribulation passing stage cultivators of every country. Haha. Hua Zongming clapped his hands and laughed. Little brother, you are really heroic. I have decided not to intervene for now. I believe that your words will spread throughout the cultivation world in a few days. I want to see how you will be the #1 cultivator below the soul formation stage. I won't do it myself, but I'll spread what you've just said. Then I'll see how you'll die. Since Brother Hua, the host, has said so, I won't intervene for now, Pu Taidong said jokingly. He also looked like he wanted to watch a good show. Yes. This is now a matter for the younger generation. It's not good for us to intervene. Miao Hanyuan said to Yan Ji with a smile. Brother Yan, if you bully the young, it's a bit too much. Why don't you see how the younger generation will settle it first? That's right. Mu Sang also nodded. Brother Yan, I think so too. Sister Xueqi, what about you? Me. Xueqi looked at Nongzhu and said, I have no opinion. I will follow the opinions of my brothers. Yan Ji naturally understood what everyone meant. He immediately laughed and said, Yu Qianqiu, I wanted to give you a quick death. Since you are looking for trouble, I will fulfill your wish. I will also do you a favor for Mr. Nongzhu. After that he flew away. There was nothing more to say at this point. Of course, he wouldn't stay any longer. Hua Zongming and the others all cupped their hands at Nongzhu and also flew away. Only Xueqi said to Nongzhu helplessly before she left, I really didn't mean it. As soon as they left, Nongzhu immediately poked Yu Qianqiu's forehead and scolded. Is there something wrong with your head? They won't dare to touch you with me here. What are you trying to do? You are the one who has a problem with your head. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand away and said, This is called goading. If I don't say this, even if old man Yan Ji doesn't make a move now, he'll still keep a close eye on me. I can't stand being watched by a master in the soul formation stage every day. Goading? Nongzhu scolded. Goading is more like goading. You've goaded yourself into it, haven't you? When the time comes, all the cultivators in the crossing calamity stage will come one after another. Let's see how you will deal with them. Who the hell will deal with them? They are not my family members. I will kill every one of them. I will kill every pair of them until they don't dare to come. Yu Qianqiu sneered. He thought to himself, I am not afraid of cultivators in the crossing calamity stage. I have more than 1,000 cultivators in the crossing calamity stage who are good at fighting. Who dares to compete with me in numbers? Fine. As long as you leave Daong City, I don't care. I want to see how many people you can kill. Nongzhu looked disappointed. Damn it! How dare you say that? If it weren't for you, would my fake identity have been exposed? Since I can't play dirty, I will play hard. Who is afraid of who? Yu Qianqiu said grumpily, I will kill as many as they come. When Rue was speechless when he saw the two of them openly discussing killing in front of him. He was thinking of sending a message to the one family to restrain them from joining in the fun. He would consider it as giving Mr. Nongzhu face. Otherwise, he would really send 2 cultivators in the last stage of the crossing calamity stage to teach this arrogant boy a lesson. When Rue didn't want to listen to Yu Qianqiu's bragging anymore, he said goodbye and left the yard. Nongzhu also landed on the swing angrily and took a nap. Yu Qianqiu knew that he was doing this for his own good. He didn't want to quarrel with him anymore. When he walked to the door of the room, he stopped, as if he thought of something. He walked back to the swing, grabbed the rope and gently swung it. Nongzhu opened his eyes and looked at him. He said, One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. What do you want to say? Yu Qianqiu didn't mind that his words were sarcastic. He said bluntly, I have a favor to ask of you. Nongzhu sat on the swing. Although it was comfortable to be swung, he didn't show any mercy. You are known as the most powerful person in the world below the soul formation stage. Do you still need to ask me for something? When you leave, help me bring Furong to Obedient Sky Island. If my master doesn't want her to stay, Help me bring her to your purple bamboo forest. Just treat it as letting her accompany Ze. Yu Qianqiu slowly said. He didn't want to send Furong away. The key was that he was afraid that something might happen to her in the current situation. He wanted to send Furong directly to Utopia, but he hadn't thought of how to explain it to Chu Pinger. No woman would be willing to share a man with another woman, right? He was feeling very conflicted. He liked all these women and wanted them all, but he didn't want to hurt them. After thinking about it, he couldn't think of a perfect solution. It was really a headache. He had to stop them from seeing each other for the time being. Furong? Nongzhu was stunned and pointed to the room. Is she the mortal girl who slept with you? What you said is so unpleasant. It simply tarnishes Mr. Nongzhu's elegant reputation in the world of cultivation. Yu Qianqiu pushed the rope and swung the swing. He said, she is not a mortal. She is also a cultivator in the middle stage of bearing essence. Huh. She is also a cultivator? Is it possible? Nongzhu began to doubt his judgment. He had been wrong these days. Yu Qianqiu didn't hide it from him. I made some restraining breath pills. After taking them, others can't easily see through my cultivation. Restraining breath pills? I've heard of it. It seems to have been lost. I didn't expect you to be able to make it. Nongzhu suddenly became interested. A sudden pressure was generated, and the swing immediately stopped moving. He reached out and said, give me a few pills. Let me go and scare your master. No problem. I'll give you a bottle for you to play with. But you have to agree to my conditions first. Yu Qianqiu said. Nongzhu jumped off the swing and looked at him while pinching his chin. This guy has 7 orifices exquisite pill, and restraining breath pills. They are all lost treasures. It seems that he really got the true inheritance of the Dan Grandmaster. I wonder if he has any other treasures with him. I am a cultivator in the middle stage of deification. Do you want me to run errands with a bottle of restraining breath pills? Nongzhu pretended to be angry. You want to blackmail me? Yu Qianqiu sneered. Ze took a priceless treasure from me. I didn't even say a word. Now you want to blackmail me? Fine. I don't need your help. You either ask Ze to return the priceless treasure to me, or you give it to me in spirit stones. I'm not picky. Chapter 482. Ze took your priceless treasure? How come I've never heard her mention it? Nongzhu asked suspiciously. Don't try to fool me. What is it? It's very precious. There's only one of it in the whole world. Yu Qianqiu said bitterly. I used countless demon cultivators and ghost cultivators in the demon ghost realm. I searched the entire demon ghost realm and collected some rare spiritual herbs to refine a Rui pill. Rui pill? Nongzhu was shocked. The Rui pill you mentioned, is it the one that can keep one's appearance forever? It's more than that. After taking it, it can cleanse one's muscles and marrow, and one will no longer be afraid of any poison in the world. Yu Qianqiu covered his face and cried. It took me a lot of effort to refine one, but I didn't expect that Ze would take it. I want to cry but no tears will come out. I'm so sad. Then he suddenly raised his head and said, do you think this Rui pill is priceless? Do you think it can be bought with money? I don't need your help. You have to pay me back for the Rui pill. Is it true? Nongzhu asked weakly. Yu Qianqiu immediately shouted, you can ask Ze whether it's true or not. She has taken it, and I don't know whether it's true or not. Don't play dumb. Pay me back. He stretched out his hand. Nongzhu was stunned for a while. She didn't expect her daughter to have such a great opportunity to take the Rui pill. It seemed that her trip to Huaxia was not in vain. When she came to herself, she slapped his hand away and said embarrassedly, since Ze has taken it, I'm afraid she has already refined it into nothing. How can I pay you back? Thinking of the day when Ze bullied Yu Qianqiu on Shuntian Island, he had already associated the scene of Ze forcibly snatching the Rui pill from Yu Qianqiu and then swallowing it. Yu Qianqiu wanted to cry but no tears came out. After that, he was bullied by a woman, but he couldn't say it. I don't care. Neither of you father and daughter are good people. Yu Qianqiu's expression was ferocious as he said, if you can't take out anything to compensate me, I'll just go all out and complain to my master. I'll say that you two father and daughter conspired to steal my Rui pill. Air. Nongzhu coughed and waved her hand. It's just a magic pill. All right. Let bygones be bygones. I won't argue with you anymore. I'll bring your woman back to you on the way. There's no need to disturb your master for such a small matter. He's very busy with Nan Ming right now, so let's not disturb him. Yu Qianqiu had a miserable look on his face. He still wanted to say something to maximize his benefits. Nongzhu suddenly clapped her hands and said, I almost forgot something very important to you. I have to tell you about it. What is it? Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Boy, you're too young to play with me. Nongzhu saw that she had successfully changed the topic. She coughed and said, You know your situation in the cultivation world. Let me ask you, how much did your master tell you about the masters in the Huashan realm? No. Yu Qianqiu shook his head. Didn't your master tell you anything when he taught you? Nongzhu asked curiously. Yu Qianqiu thought for a while and replied, No. He told me to comprehend it on my own. Ah. Nongzhu was stunned and said, Did you figure out everything you learned by yourself? Yu Qianqiu scratched his head. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that since he joined the cultivation world, the three masters that he had been apprenticed to did not teach him much. Whatever was randomly thrown to him, he would treat it as a treasure, just like a dog seeing a bone. He worked hard to learn while bleeding and sweating. He walked step by step in constant failures and attempts. Among the three masters, Hao Sansi was the one who cared the most about him. Unfortunately, he was killed by the Daluo sect not long after he gave him an introductory book. Guan Weiwu of the Fuxin Island was a different story. He was taught by his master, and cultivation depended on himself. He did not even teach him anything. He wanted to learn the Gui Yuan swordplay, but he could not count on him. Therefore he tried to practice blindly. As a result, he made a mess of the Gui Yuan swordplay. After he mastered it, he did not know if it was still the Gui Yuan swordplay. As for Bai Chongqun, he was a big shot. He seemed to think that his apprentice should be as talented as him. He talked a lot of mysterious words, and in short, he asked Meng Qi to comprehend it. Fortunately, he gave him the animal play to practice, but he did not know how effective it was. Master's advice has benefited me a lot. Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly. He could not say that his master did not teach him anything. Could he? The person in front of him was his master's best friend. If his master heard this, he did not know what his master would think. In fact, he did not want to tell anyone about the hardships he had experienced along the way. It was not something that could be explained in a few sentences. If he said too much, people might think that he was pretentious. Only he knew how much he had sacrificed. Some things should be buried in the heart. This was his greatest wealth. He comforted himself by saying that he should not show his wealth. He would rather let others see the arrogant, domineering, cruel, and vicious Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world. The injured Yu Qianqiu would not let him show his face in the cultivation world. It was better to be a domineering powerhouse than a pitiful person who complained miserably. He thought so and did so. He felt very good about himself, and there was nothing bad about it. Nongzhu keenly caught the faint and indescribable bitterness on his face when he said this. She moved her mouth, but some words did not come out. They were all men. There were some things in common, as long as they understood it in their hearts. But there was one thing that Nongzhu had to admire by Chongqun. The mysterious skills of Yu Qianqiu were not simple. They had great potential. If Yu Qianqiu's skills were all achieved by self-understanding, then Bai Chongqun really had a good eye for people. It was impossible for a random disciple to have such a high power of understanding. He should be carefully selected. But he did not know that Yu Qianqiu had never thought that he had a good power of understanding. He had always thought that he was a very stupid person. Otherwise, he would not have been killed at a young age in his previous life. So he had been whipping himself to work harder and harder. Diligence could make up for it. Nongzhu stopped trying to fool him and asked solemnly, Have you heard of the 3 souls and 7 spirits? Yes. Yu Qianqiu nodded seriously and said, Is the 3 souls and 7 spirits related to the Huashan realm? Of course it's related. If it's not, why would I talk to you about it? Nongzhu said calmly, The 3 souls are the heaven soul, the earth soul, and the life soul. The 7 spirits are Tianchong, Linghui, Qi, Li, Jinjing, and Ying. Every normal person has the 3 souls and 7 spirits. Of course, ordinary people can't detect the 3 souls and 7 spirits in their bodies like cultivators. You mean that cultivators can detect the 3 souls and 7 spirits in their bodies? Yu Qianqiu subconsciously touched his chest and said in astonishment, "How come I have never felt the 3 souls and 7 spirits in my body?" There was something to learn, so his current image was that of a respectful and good student. Nongzhu glanced at him and thought, "It's not all luck that this guy can get to where he is today." She snorted and said, "You wish. Even I can only detect the 3 souls and 4 spirits. Do you want to see the 3 souls and 7 spirits with your current cultivation? You must be dreaming. Only those who have reached the last stage of Huashan realm can see the 3 souls and 7 spirits. You can only see the life soul of the 3 souls." "Ah, no." Yu Qianqiu was surprised and said, "I've never seen my life soul." "Bullshit. How did you reach the Yuanying realm without seeing your life soul?" Nongzhu scolded. Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and giggled. He bowed and said, "I really don't understand. Please teach me." As he spoke, he walked to the swing, pulled off the hem of his long gown, wiped it on the swing, and said with a smile, "Please sit down. You can lie down and talk slowly. I'll swing for you." Nongzhu looked at his exposed trousers and was stunned. Then she took the opportunity and said, "Old man? Do I look very old?" "Ah." Yu Qianqiu repeatedly waved his hands and smiled apologetically. You're not old at all. You're handsome and elegant. There's no one in the world who can compare to you. You look even younger than me, even younger than me." "That's true." Nongzhu touched his chin and lay down on the swing. He looked at Yu Qianqiu, who had lost the front hem of his robe, and said, "Boy, do you always flatter people? I think you're very good at it." No. If you want me to flatter them, they have to be qualified like you." Yu Qianqiu smiled and gently shook the swing for him. He said, "You said my cultivation can see the life soul. Is it the yuanying in my body?" Nongzhu asked, "Do you know why mortals get sick easily, but cultivators don't?" "I don't know. Please tell me." Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "The main reason why mortals get sick is that their souls are invaded by external evils. Their souls are unstable, and their bodies will show various symptoms of exhaustion. Some people, because of regular exercise, strengthen their bodies and strengthen the stability of their souls. Because their souls are stable, it's difficult for external evils to invade their souls. That's why they seem to have stronger resistance than ordinary people." Nongzhu said with a smile, "Let me give you an example. There's a person who exercises regularly and a weak scholar. Both of them eat a poisonous food by mistake. You will discover a very interesting thing. Even if the person who exercises regularly eats more and is poisoned more deeply, it is usually the weak scholar who dies first. On the other hand, the person who exercises regularly can persevere longer. Perhaps he can even wait until someone comes to save him. That's the advantage of a stable soul." "Damn it. That seems to be the case. But it should be because of good physical fitness and strong resistance. There's no scientific basis for your statement." Yu Qianqiu asked, "Those who exercise regularly are those who practice martial arts in the secular world." Chapter 483. Practicing martial arts in the secular world or cultivation among cultivators is a way to improve the stability of the soul. But the progress of the latter is incomparable to that of the former. Nongzhu tapped on the armrest of the rattan chair with her slender fingers and said leisurely, "It's not unreasonable to cultivate step by step. The main purpose of the qi refining stage is to nourish the body with spirit stones until the body can bear the tempering." "Tempering? How to do that? I haven't." Yu Qianqiu said anxiously, as if he was worried that he had missed something good. "Tempering is the Xueqi realm. You haven't gone through the Xueqi realm?" Nongzhu turned around and said indifferently, "Don't tell me you directly jumped from the qi refining stage to the yuanying stage." "Ah." Yu Qianqiu smiled embarrassedly, "So it's the Xueqi realm." Yes. How could I directly jump to the yuanying stage?" Nongzhu rolled her eyes at him and closed her eyes again. She said, "The cultivation of the qi refining stage is to prepare for the Xueqi realm. Otherwise you will die if you force it. If you don't believe me, you can bring a mortal here and let him take a foundation-laying pill. I'm sure the pill is more poisonous than poison, and he will die immediately. Yu Qianqiu didn't doubt this. He had personally experienced the pain of the Xueqi realm. Ordinary people couldn't bear it at all. A foundation-laying pill would definitely kill them. After stepping into the foundation establishment stage, you've truly stepped into the doorstep of cultivation. What is the Xueqi realm? The Xueqi realm is to lay a good foundation for cultivation, which is also very important. Otherwise, it is impossible to extract the 3 souls and 7 spirits from the body to form the core. Nongzhu opened one eye and waved a finger at Yu Qianqiu. She said, without the qi refining stage in the Xueqi realm, an ordinary person will definitely die if he forcibly extracts the 3 souls and 7 spirits. Because once the soul leaves the blood, flesh and meridians of the ordinary person, the person is already dead. You mean, after cultivating to the Xueqi realm, the core in the body is condensed by the 3 souls and 7 spirits? Yu Qianqiu asked curiously. He had never heard of such a thing before. So this was what core formation was all about. It seemed there were some things that were difficult for people at other levels to know. To be more precise, core formation is turning the formless into the tangible. It's condensing the 3 souls and 7 spirits in the body into tangible objects. Nongzhu smiled leisurely and said, bearing essence is like incubating an egg. When the egg hatches and matures, your nascent soul will break out of the shell. In other words, a life soul. Now do you know what a life soul is? So that's how it is. The life soul is indeed the nascent soul. Yu Qianqiu asked eagerly, what about the other 2 souls and 7 spirits? Where are they? That's not right. Didn't you say that core formation is formed by the condensation of the 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls? Why did it only hatch a life soul and nothing else? You can't become fat with just one bite. If I want to see the other 2 souls and 7 spirits, I naturally have to continue cultivating. Nongzhu raised her hand and pointed at Yu Qianqiu's abdomen and said, the life soul you see now is actually the 3 souls and 7 physical souls in one body. Have you noticed that your nascent soul is like an unconscious fetus, forever in a deep sleep? Yes. I've never seen it open its eyes. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, it's right that you haven't seen it open its eyes. Once it opens its eyes, it means that it has woken up and your cultivation has reached the crossing calamity stage. Nongzhu explained, your current cultivation is still in the nascent soul stage, which is the stage when the nascent soul fetus matures. When it wakes up and you enter the crossing calamity stage, that is the growth period of the baby. And the final stage of the crossing calamity stage is the sign that the baby has grown into an adult. Yu Qianqiu said, that is to say, even at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage, I can only see the life soul, but not the other souls? Yes. Nongzhu nodded slightly and said, why is the life soul called the life soul? Because it is the first life soul to be born, and the other 2 souls and 7 physical souls will also be born from it. When you can see the life soul in your dantian giving birth to the heavenly soul, it means that the nascent soul in your body has grown up and can reproduce. At the same time, it means that you have entered the early stage of the Huashan realm. So, the heavenly soul is the sign that the cultivation has reached the Huashan realm? Yu Qianqiu smacked his lips and looked like he was drooling. Isn't it said that the divine realm is the divine realm? There are geniuses and gods. It can also be said that your cultivation has entered a new world and supported your own sky. That's why it is called the Huashan realm. Nongzhu looked at his greedy face and said with a smile, when you break through the Huashan realm and look back, you will find that there is a huge difference between the final stage of the crossing calamity stage and the early stage of the Huashan realm. Of course. Otherwise, why is it called the Huashan realm? Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and said, but I am still far from the Huashan realm. I don't know if there is any hope. If you continue to make trouble in the cultivation world, it is not impossible for you to survive. Nongzhu joked, with the speed of your cultivation, you have saved a lot of time compared to others. If you can break through the final stage of the crossing calamity stage before you are 100 years old, you will have hundreds of years to slowly struggle. I believe that even a pig can climb to the Huashan realm in a few hundred years. Of course, the premise is that you will not be killed in these hundreds of years. But according to your situation, it will be difficult for you to live until you are 100 years old. Nongzhu did not forget to add. Yu Qianqiu wanted to scold her on the spot, but when he thought that he still had questions to ask her, he could only shut up and curse in his heart. Damn it! Do you think I am like you? Without Ze, I have no worries and can go wherever I want. I have so many people I love. How can I just leave them alone? It is easy for me to plan for myself. It is not a problem for me to cultivate in seclusion every day. But how can I watch my loved ones die of old age? I want to enjoy immortal happiness together with everyone when I become immortal. Forget it, there is no way to talk to you, a person who eats and waits for death. Isn't there a middle and late stage in the Huashan realm? Will the rest of the souls come out one by one in these 3 stages? Yu Qianqiu asked. Something like that. Nongzhu nodded slightly and said, if there is heaven, there will be earth. Once the heaven soul comes out, the earth soul will be separated from the life soul, and then the first soul will be Tianchong. When the heaven soul, the earth soul, and the first soul are gathered, it will be the peak of the early stage of the Huashan realm. When the second soul is gathered, the third soul is the spirit, and the fourth soul is the peak of the middle stage of the Huashan realm. When the fifth soul is gathered, the sixth soul is the essence, and the seventh soul is the peak of the late stage of the Huashan realm. The life soul will guard the body and not be confused with the others. The Huashan realm. It's really unfathomable. 2F** King unfathomable. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his hands and said, now that you can see the 3 souls and 4 souls, you have reached the peak of the middle stage of the Huashan realm. That's nothing. Nongzhu said disapprovingly. You are far worse than your master. Your master has 3 souls and 7 souls. I'm afraid he has reached the stage of fusing souls. Fusing souls? Yu Qianqiu licked his lips and said, what's that? A stage higher than the Huashan realm. Ascending to the immortal world. Nongzhu pointed to the sky, shook her head and sighed. When the cultivation of 3 souls and 7 souls is completed, starting from the 7 souls, they will be fused back to the life soul according to the order in which they were separated. Once the 7 souls are fused back to the life soul, he can ascend to the immortal world. Then, every time a soul is fused back, his strength in the immortal world will be improved by 1 level, which is about the same as the Huashan realm. As for what exactly happened, no one is very clear about it. It's all just a legend. Damn! Becoming an immortal. Yu Qianqiu covered his chest excitedly, as if becoming an immortal was right in front of him. Nongzhu turned to look at him and sneered. Why are you so excited? You don't even know when you will break through to the tribulation stage, and you are still dreaming about becoming an immortal. Isn't your dream too far away? This basin of cold water immediately poured on him, and he was immediately brought back to reality. Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly and said, I'm just dreaming about it. If I have a dream, I have a goal to strive for. I'll just work hard. It's good enough that you can reach your master's level. Nongzhu sighed. Becoming an immortal? I don't know how those ancient cultivators did it. Yu Qianqiu sighed dejectedly. That's true. I don't know when my master can fuse the 7 souls. He swung on the swing weakly. I've also asked your master about this, but your master is very secretive and won't say a word about it. Nongzhu spread out her hands and said, I guess he felt that there was no hope for the fusion, or he wouldn't have gone to the East Holy Land to seek excitement. Yu Qianqiu nodded in agreement, and then swung on the swing again and said to himself, if the 3 souls and 7 spirits are fused again, I wonder what kind of realm his cultivation will reach. Nongzhu suddenly gave him a thumbs up and said without turning her head, Congratulations! It is said that when you reach that level of cultivation, besides the solid life soul, the other 2 souls and 7 spirits can transform into 3 heads and 6 arms outside the body to fight against the enemy together. That is the cultivation of an immortal emperor in the immortal world. You can pull him down and sit on his seat. If you are comfortable, don't forget to come down to the mortal world to help me. I will be very grateful. Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly and said, Don't insult me. 3 heads and 6 arms? Is that Neza? Neza is the cultivation of an immortal emperor? He suddenly thought of the 3rd Prince Neza in the myth of his previous life and was stunned. Who is Neza? Can he have 3 heads and 6 arms? Nongzhu sneered and said, Don't tell me you know an immortal emperor. Of course not. I'm just imagining. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled. You're really imaginative. Then what else are you thinking about? Nongzhu asked casually. But Yu Qianqiu also answered casually. I'm thinking, what is the cultivation of an immortal emperor? Yes, there is a saying about it. It's said that it's a god. Nongzhu waved her hand and pointed to the sun in the west and said, It's said that after the 3 souls and 7 spirits are fused again, they can be divided again. But at that time, the 3 souls and 7 spirits will be released to cultivate, instead of staying inside the body. Each soul can become a son. There is an old legend. It seems that a god's cultivation has reached the realm where he can release all 3 souls and 7 spirits. As a result, 10 suns appeared in the sky and there was no night in the world, only day. The common people in the mortal world couldn't stand it. At this time, a god called Yi suddenly appeared. He pulled his magic bow and shot down 9 suns. So there was only 1 sun left in the sky. Yu Qianqiu stood rooted to the spot. Chapter 484. Ho-Yi shoots the sun. It's actually Ho-Yi shoots the sun. It's actually Ho-Yi shoots the sun. Yu Qianqiu kept murmuring to himself, and he seemed to be in a trance. He didn't read many books in his previous life, but he was very familiar with the story of Ho-Yi shooting the sun, which was known to every household. Normally, he wouldn't even think of this kind of fairy tale, but now, he heard someone say that Ho-Yi shot the sun in another world. What was the connection between these 2 stories? He already had an illusion, and he couldn't tell whether he was in his previous life or this life. Nongzhu said without turning her head, "It's a great god named Yi who shoots the sun, but I don't know whether his name is Ho-Yi or not. You won't tell me that you know Yi Shen who shoots the sun, will you?" Yu Qianqiu didn't hear what she said at all, and was still murmuring, "It's actually Ho-Yi who shoots the sun." Nongzhu suddenly turned around, and was a little surprised to see him like this. Listening closely, she realized that he was repeating the same sentence over and over again. Nongzhu slightly narrowed her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking. Her slender fingers tapped on the armrest of the rattan chair, and she didn't disturb him, but quietly waited for him to come back to his senses. However, as he waited, the moon was high up in the sky, and the night sky was full of stars. Suddenly, a shrill quacking sound of an old turtle flew across the sky. Yu Qianqiu trembled and came back to his senses. He subconsciously raised his head and glanced at the old turtle that flew across the bright moon. His eyes fell on the beautiful moon, and he couldn't move anymore. Suddenly, the 2 words, Chang'e, came out of his mouth. Then he shouted again, and reached out his hand to grab Nongzhu, who was sitting on the rattan chair. He directly grabbed Nongzhu's clothes on her chest, lifted her up, and asked excitedly, "Does that great god Ho-Yi have a wife named Chang'e?" Nongzhu was a little confused. She was caught by him just like that, and was tormented by him like crazy. She directly burst out a curse. F***CKU. What do you mean? Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Slowly, he began to recover. Nongzhu immediately cursed, "Bastard, if you don't let me go, I'll teach you how to hold chopsticks with your feet. Then you'll know what I mean." Ah! Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and was shocked. He quickly let go and looked around, only to realize that it was already dark. Immediately, he said in surprise, "Why is it suddenly dark?" "Bastard, you're thinking about someone else's wife. The moment you think about it, you think about the sky turning dark. You still have the nerve to ask me?" Nongzhu said angrily, "Damn it! How dare you touch me? I haven't suffered such a loss for 1,000 years. If it weren't for that Rui pill, I would have let you know why the sky is so dark today." Yu Qianqiu's brain was still a little numb. He only heard the first part, but not the second part. With a puzzled look, he asked, "I want someone else's wife?" "No. I've never wanted to be someone else's wife." Nongzhu opened her mouth. Today was her bad luck. She didn't want to argue with him anymore. She said weakly, "You said that the wife of the great god Yi is called Chang Huang. God knows what kind of crazy you are." "Ho-Yi's wife? Are you always hungry?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned for a moment, then he shouted excitedly, "That's right, no wrong. F***CK, why is it so hard to talk to you? Ho-Yi's wife is called Chang'e, Chang'e as in 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 Chang'e. Do you understand?" He said it effortlessly, but Nongzhu had a hard time listening to him. Her eyes were a little numb, and she was almost confused by him again. Who cares what he says? I'll scold him first. "Bastard, what kind of nonsense are you spouting? Are you even speaking human language?" Yu Qianqiu didn't mind. He asked excitedly, "Who cares what he's saying? As long as you can understand him, it's fine. Have you heard of Chang'e?" I'll be damned if I can understand. Nongzhu was speechless again. She rubbed her face and answered seriously. Who is Changyi? Hou Yi's wife, of course. Yu Qianqiu's eyes sparkled. Nongzhu rolled her eyes and shouted, Hou Yi's wife has nothing to do with me. Didn't you say that God Yi's wife is called Chang Huang? Let me correct you. She should be called Changyi. Since you can say it, you must have heard of it. Tell me quickly. Yu Qianqiu said eagerly. The feeling of living two lives was not good. Suddenly, he found the traces of two worlds crossing at a certain point. That feeling. He felt a little excited as if he had met an old friend in a foreign land. What the F***ck? Nongzhu couldn't help but burst out again. She pointed at Yu Qianqiu's chest and said, There's something wrong with your brain. It was you who told me that God Yi's wife is called Chang Huang. How come it's me who said it? Hey! Don't go back on your words. Both my ears clearly heard you say it. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and immediately patted his chest and said, As long as you tell me what you know about Chang Huang, I'll give you a 7 orifices exquisite pill. I won't go back on my word. Ah! Nongzhu was stunned. She thought, is there something wrong with this guy's brain? Whatever, I'll get the pill first. If there's really a problem, I'll ask Bai Chongqun to cure it. She rolled her eyes and nodded. Yes. God Yi's wife is called Chang Huang. I said it. Give me the pill. Then she stretched out her hand. What's the hurry? Yu Qianqiu was so happy that he asked without thinking, Tell me how you know Chang Huang first. Bullshit. If I had the ability to know God Yi's wife, I wouldn't be standing here talking nonsense with you. Nongzhu said with a serious look. She stared at Yu Qianqiu and said, There's something wrong with your brain, isn't there? Hey, I'm being too hasty. Yu Qianqiu said very sincerely, I want you to tell me what the legend is about God Yi and his wife, Chang Huang. Nongzhu pinched her chin and thought, a god who can shoot the sun, what kind of legend could he have with his wife? Fearing that he couldn't remember, Yu Qianqiu pointed to the bright moon and reminded, The legend of Chang Huang and the moon, there is a palace on the moon, what's its name again? Nongzhu wanted to make up a legend to fool him with a pill first. Being reminded by him, she was suddenly confused. After a pause she said hesitantly, The Moon Palace? Wrong. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and reminded again. There are 3 words in total. The first word is Guang, with the word Guang. Think again. With the word Guang? Nongzhu, who was in the middle stage of Huashan realm, was now full of question marks. She looked at the moon with a dumbfounded expression, and then tried to answer in a weak voice. Guangyu Palace? Guangming Palace? Guangyu Palace? Guangyuan Palace. Hearing a lot of palaces, Yu Qianqiu shook his head and denied them one by one. Nongzhu was tormented until her mouth was dry. Finally she couldn't help shouting, You know what palace it is, why did you ask me? What palace is it? Guanghan Palace. After Yu Qianqiu announced the correct answer, he asked again. Chang Huang raised a small animal and planted a tree outside the Guanghan Palace. What kind of animal did she raise? What kind of tree did she plant? Nongzhu opened her mouth, and then her face twitched. She pointed at him with her trembling body and said harshly, You brat, how dare you fool me? Go to hell. Nongzhu suddenly came to a realization. Her intuition told her that this brat was usually so cunning. How could he ask such a stupid question? It was obvious that he was teasing her with the elixir, but she was like a dog seeing a bone, so she moved forward eagerly. Bang! He kicked out. Ah! Yu Qianqiu let out a scream, and he flew to the flowers 5 or 6 meters away. Shit! This flower has thorns. Yu Qianqiu's scream immediately came from the flowers. Nongzhu, are you crazy? Is there something wrong with your brain? Is there something wrong with my brain? Nongzhu pointed at her nose, and then pointed at the person who climbed up from the flowers, and said, If I continue to talk to you, no problem will become a problem. Bastard! How dare you fool me? You don't want to live, do you? Damn you, there are so many thorns, my ass. A figure jumped out from the flowers. Under the moonlight, Yu Qianqiu tiptoed as he scolded. Nongzhu, just you wait. One day, I'll throw you into a pile of thorns and enjoy you to your heart's content. Stubborn. I will let you enjoy it now. Nongju snorted coldly and teleported to his back. She kicked him in the buttocks as fast as a sudden clap of thunder. Ah! Yu Qianqiu screamed again, and he was kicked into the air. He crashed through the door and rolled into the room. Inside, there was a sound of tables and chairs being overturned. Inside the room, Zhang Pang and Furong, who had long been in tears, hurried over to help him up. Yu Qianqiu bared his teeth and pointed at Nongju. Originally, he wanted to curse out loud, but when he thought that a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him, he forced the words out of his mouth. You're ruthless. We'll see. Zhang Peng closed the door. As soon as the door was closed, Yu Qianqiu ran to the bedroom and took off all his clothes. He ran to the bright part of the room naked and stood in a straight line. He said, Furong, come and help me remove the thorns. The old man is so cruel. He sealed my dantian and deliberately made me suffer. When Nongju kicked him, she had already sealed his dantian with her hidden strength. Otherwise, with his cultivation of the original infant stage, the thorns could not hurt him. It took him a while to remove all the thorns. This injury was not a problem. He was not so weak. The key was that Nongju had secretly sealed his dantian. Furong and Zhang Peng could not remove it at all. For a cultivator, his dantian would be in danger at any time if his dantian was sealed. It seemed that he had to ask Nongju to be merciful. Zhang Peng, go and have a rest. I am fine. After sending Zhang Peng away, he comforted Furong and told her not to worry. Yu Qianqiu walked to the swing outside slowly. He looked at Nongju, who was lying on the rattan chair and staring at him with a sneer. He coughed awkwardly and shook the rope. He looked up and sighed. The moon is nice today. Humph. It is nice. Do you want me to send you to the Moon Palace to see Chong Huang? Nongju sneered. Chapter 485. He finally realized that when this guy needed help, he would pretend to be a coward. When he tore off his gown and scratched the rattan chair, it was so touching. Once he stopped asking for help, he could turn around and pretend to be his father. He turned hostile faster than anyone else. Now he came to show off again. It would be strange if he could be nice to him. Well, you know I'm in a dangerous situation now. You've sealed my dantian. If someone comes to kill me now, I can't protect myself. Do you think? Yu Qianqiu smiled apologetically. You want me to remove the inhibition formation in your dantian? Nongju shook her head and said, No way. Don't. Yu Qianqiu pulled the rope and said, If something happens to me, you can't explain it to my master. What a joke. If you're killed by others, it's because you're not as good as them. What do you think I need to explain to your master? Nongju sneered and said, If I kill you with my own hands, it's a bit unreasonable. But I'm happy to see you killed by others. Yu Qianqiu didn't believe what she said. If she really wanted to see him die, she didn't have to protect him at the risk of falling out with Hua Zongming and the others. She was just saying it out of anger. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth and said, 17 orifices exquisite pill, can you remove it? Bastard, I've been waiting for you to say this. Nongju laughed and climbed up from the rattan chair. She walked to Yu Qianqiu and stretched out 2 fingers, saying, 1 is not enough. Zi and I will take 2. Yu Qianqiu frowned and said, You're too greedy. There are only 9 pills in 1 furnace. You want 2? Black or white? If you don't give me 2, I guess you won't dare to leave this door for the rest of your life. It's up to you. Nongju pretended to be calm. Then she patted her forehead and said, I forgot to tell you that sealing your dantian is my exclusive skill. Even if your master were here, he would have to spend a lot of effort to do it. Don't dispel it recklessly. Don't blame me if you destroy your dantian by force. Yu Qianqiu pointed at him and said bitterly, To think that I trusted you so much. Otherwise, how could I have given you the chance to seal my dantian? All right, I guess I'm unlucky. 2 it is. I agree. Haha. Nongju laughed and said, Why didn't you say yes earlier? Why did you have to talk so much nonsense? As she said this, she pinched out a messy finger incantation and slapped it into Yu Qianqiu's abdomen with several white lights. Yu Qianqiu let out a sigh of relief as the Zhan Yuan in his body began to circulate once more. The feeling of having one's fate controlled by someone else was too terrifying, even more terrifying than death itself. It was the feeling that he wanted to get rid of the most in his life, and that was why he had fought so hard to get rid of the shackles that bound him. Nongju stretched out her hand and said, "Am I good enough?" "Work first, then take the items. Now, give me the spirit pills. Do you think I'll give it to you just because you said so?" Yu Qianqiu snorted inwardly and shrugged his shoulders. "We'll talk about it later. Anyway, you're not in a hurry to use them." "What do you mean?" Nongju's face darkened. "How dare you fool me? If I can seal you once, I can seal you again. It's useless even if you're unhappy. I don't have the spirit pills with me. Even if you seal me 10 times, I won't be able to give them to you." Yu Qianqiu said helplessly, "If I carry such a precious thing with me and the news spreads, it will attract covetous eyes from others. Wouldn't I be seeking death then? You'd better not lie to me, or I'll make you cry." Nongju squinted her eyes and said, "Where are the spirit pills? Tell me, and I'll go and get them myself." "That's fine. However, I have to make it clear. You can only take 2. You cannot touch the rest," Yu Qianqiu said seriously. "Once you know where it is, it's not up to you to decide. Just wait and beg me." Nongju's face softened a little. She said, "Don't worry. I'm a man of my word. I'll only take what belongs to me. I won't touch other people's things." Damn. Those who say they're trustworthy are usually the most untrustworthy. I'm 100% sure of this. Yu Qianqiu thought for a while and nodded. "Last time when I went to the Moon Clan with Ze, Chonghua Fairy wanted to introduce us to the Cultivation Alliance. I was worried that I would offend too many people and it would not be safe to bring the spirit pills to the Cultivation Alliance. So I left the spirit pills with Chonghua Fairy." Hearing this, Nongju's face turned green. Her instinct told her that this guy was playing with her again. Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental that the spirit pills were in Chonghua Fairy's hands? Yu Qianqiu continued as if nothing had happened. "Of course, Chonghua Fairy doesn't know it's a spirit pill. You'd better not tell her when you go to get it. The fewer people who know about it, the better. By the way, the spirit pills are sealed with hell iron. It can block spiritual consciousness from seeing them. You need to use the secret code when you go to get it. Otherwise, Chonghua Fairy won't give it to you." There was a secret code? Nongju was a little surprised. She kind of believed him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. She asked suspiciously, "What secret code?" Yu Qianqiu explained, "When you find her, you tell her to take the thing that Yu Qianqiu left with you. She will say, the Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger. And you will say, the pagoda suppresses the river monster. Then she will give it to you." Nongju's face twitched. She said in a low voice, "Why did you leave it with her?" "Because of you," Yu Qianqiu said in surprise. "You're talking nonsense again. It has nothing to do with me." Nongju stared at him. "There are 3 reasons." Yu Qianqiu counted on his fingers and said, "First, you didn't see how intimate Fairy Jasper was when she saw Ze. I saw that the 2 of them looked so similar, so I felt that the 2 of them must be related. After that, I heard some clues from her words. Ze should be the daughter she had with you. Don't be anxious. Let me finish." Nongju's face was gloomy. She put down her raised hand. Yu Qianqiu coughed and continued, "I am Ze's friend. She won't say anything if I leave this thing with her. Second, the elixir is sealed by hell iron. My divine sense can't see what's inside. Thirdly, I believe that you, Mr. Nongju, have good taste as well. Those who are able to get into bed with you and give birth to children must be of good moral character." "Enough!" Nongju turned sideways and said in a low voice, "You can get it by yourself later. Just remember that you owe me 2 elixirs. Don't try to renege." Yu Qianqiu patted his chest and said, "Don't worry. I live by my credit. You don't have to worry." "Don't talk to me about your bullshit credit." Nongju shouted, "Go back to your woman." "You like to play? I will play with you any time." Yu Qianqiu was very happy. He cupped his hands and turned around to leave. But after a few steps, he frowned again. He came back and asked, "Senior Nongju, there is something I really want to know. I sincerely want to know." Nongju stared at the night sky in the distance. No one knew what she was thinking. she answered calmly. Say it. About the legend about Yi Shen shooting the sun. How much do you know? Can you tell me everything you know? Yu Qianqiu took a breath and said. For this legend, he suddenly had an indescribable expectation. He didn't know what he was expecting. It was vague and vague. Nongzhu turned around and said with her eyes shining, You seem to be very interested in this. Why? Worship. I am fascinated by the worship of a powerful man. That was all he could say. No one would understand what happened in his previous life, and there was no need for him to say it. I have only heard about this from the former torture master of the demon ghost region. He said that there was a great god named Yi who destroyed the 9 suns in the sky with 9 arrows in a row to save the world. I have been fascinated and asked him about it, but he only said that it was an old legend and shouldn't be taken seriously. That's all I know. As for the wife of Yi Shen you mentioned, I have never even heard of her, not to mention the palace, raising animals or planting trees. Nongzhu paused and said, If you want to know more, you can ask your teacher. As the current torture master, he may know more than me. I see. Yu Qianqiu let out a breath, nodded with disappointment and said, I won't bother you any more. He turned around and left slowly. However, when he walked to the door, Nongzhu called him again. Come back, I almost forgot to tell you one thing. Yu Qianqiu's eyes shone. He hurriedly ran back and asked, Elder Nongzhu, do you remember any legend about Yi Shen? Don't mention Yi Shen to me again. I have told you everything I know. Nongzhu looked at him with puzzlement for a long while, as if there was something she couldn't figure out. Then she said, You're too noisy. If you hadn't mentioned Shuntian Island and your master just now, I would have forgotten about it. When I left Shuntian Island, your teacher suddenly sent me a message and asked me to ask some questions for him. I will tell you everything I know. Yu Qianqiu immediately folded his hands and stood up respectfully. Nongzhu nodded and said, Your teacher said that because of your low cultivation, he was still worried about letting you travel alone. He asked me to ask you, which one do you think is more powerful, the fire magic or the water magic? Well. Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and said, I have fought with people many times and found that the water magic is almost useless when I meet masters. Instead, the fire magic always helps me win. So, the fire magic should be more powerful. Your master said that if you say that the power of fire and water arts is as great, then there's no need to say anything else. He won't be too worried about your ability to protect yourself when you travel around the various countries. Nongzhu sorted out her thoughts and continued, If you say the fire magic is more powerful than the water magic, he asked me to tell you something else. I will listen to your advice, teacher. Yu Qianqiu was a little excited. Although his teacher didn't talk much, once he opened his mouth, every word was like a gem, absolutely without any nonsense. Listen carefully to your teacher's original words. Nongzhu said, Water and fire are 2 extremes. The operation of the way of heaven is about balance. Where there is yin, there must be yang. Therefore, there is no such thing as fire being more powerful than water. If you think fire is more powerful than water, then you are totally wrong. The reason why you think so is that you haven't understood the mystery in it, or you haven't used it well. As I said, if you use it well, you will be invincible. The key of the fire magic is to release fire and defend the enemy with yang. The water magic is yin, and yin and yang are opposite to each other. When fire is released, water is withdrawn. Only by releasing and withdrawing can you follow the way of heaven. Yes, that's what your teacher said. Nongzhu poked her head over and asked softly, What is your teacher talking about? I am confused. Do you know what it means? Tell me. When the fire is released, the water comes in. Yu Qianqiu murmured to himself with a dull expression. He didn't reply to Nongzhu and walked to the side of the flower bed alone. He raised his palm towards the flowers under the moonlight. Hey, I asked you a question. Nongzhu's voice stopped abruptly, and her eyes gradually widened. She saw the seedlings and flowers in the flower bed were rapidly withering. Chapter 486. There were a total of 3 flower beds in the yard, distributed on both sides and in the middle. Yu Qianqiu was facing the middle one. This flower bed was the largest, occupying nearly half of the yard, and there was a big tree in the middle. The flowers were delicate under the moonlight, and the green leaves were glowing faintly. However, all of this changed after Yu Qianqiu attacked with his palm. The color of life faded instantly. The flowers and green leaves withered and shrunk as if they were facing the cold winter. The big tree made a muffled sound, and the withered leaves fell. Nongzhu had never seen such a phenomenon, and his face was full of disbelief. The leaves of the big tree fluttered, and the sound of rustling was endless. It did not take long for all the leaves to fall. The big tree had withered, and it showed its loftiness under the moonlight. Nongzhu turned his head slowly, and looked at the young man beside him in horror. Yu Qianqiu looked calm, and his palm was still in the air. He looked extremely serene under the moonlight, as if he was a god who controlled life, and grasped the growth rings of time with a snap of his fingers. If I want you to wither, how can you let flowers bloom, and how can you be lush and green? Nongzhu believed that with his cultivation, it was not a problem to turn the whole flower bed into powder in an instant. However, it was impossible for him to make the flowers and trees in the nursery grow rapidly across time and space without any effort. This was already a miracle. Nongzhu thought so. Only Yu Qianqiu himself knew that this had absolutely nothing to do with a miracle. It was just that his master's words reminded him. The power of the fire formula was to burn, and it was impossible for the water formula to submerge the enemy with water. Even if the water was turned into ice, the ice would be disintegrated in an instant, and it would be difficult to give the enemy a fatal blow. At that time he was thinking, stop? How can the water formula resist the enemy? His eyes fell on the flowers and trees, and he suddenly realized some common sense from his previous life. The bodies of animals and plants contained a lot of water. Without the support of water, it meant that they lost their lives. Since he could absorb the water elements from lakes and rivers, why couldn't he absorb the water elements from animals and plants? Thus, he activated the water incantation and enveloped the entire flower bed. Sure enough, as he had hoped, the thousands of flowers and trees did not have the slightest resistance, and were instantly sucked dry by his palm, turning into water elements and stored in his body. The flowers and trees in the flower bed also lost all signs of life in an instant. What a domineering spell! Yu Qianqiu looked calm on the surface, but he was deeply shocked by himself. He had used the water incantation many times. Other than feeling that it was miraculous, he really didn't feel that it was very powerful. He didn't expect that after changing the way he used it, it would actually be so overbearing. It was unbelievably overbearing. Yu Qianqiu now truly understood by Changchun's words, use it well and you will be invincible. At the same time, he couldn't help but admire Bai Changchun. He had never practiced water arts before, but based on his own understanding of the heavenly Tao, he was able to speculate how to use water arts to unleash their power. The #1 expert in the world was indeed not someone to be trifled with. Just his ability to see through everything in the world was not something an ordinary person could compare with. Yu Qianqiu was sincerely convinced and a little touched. From Nongzhu's words, he could tell that Bai Changchun's eyes were like torches. Obviously, he had already guessed the mystery of the water incantation, but he had never told him personally. According to his style of doing things, he guessed that he wanted him to comprehend it. But because he was worried that he would encounter danger when he traveled among the countries, he used Nongzhu's words to enlighten him and help him. It was completely to let him have more skills to defend himself. Nongzhu casually picked up a withered flower branch and pinched it in her hand. Immediately, it turned into powder. It was indeed dead, without any signs of life. Nongzhu was dumbfounded. Boy, how did you do that just now? Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu sobered up and sighed slowly. He bowed piously to the direction of Shuntian Island and said, Thank you, Master, for pointing out the right path and enlightening me. Then he bowed to Nongzhu and said, Thank you, Master, for passing on the message. Ah! Nongzhu threw away the thing in her hand and patted the dust on her palm. She grabbed Yu Qianqiu's arm and asked curiously, You mean, everything that happened just now was because of the few words I passed on to old Bai? There is such a big mystery hidden in these few words? Yes. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said with a smile, To me, these few words are like a golden bell. It is thought-provoking and has solved the puzzle that I have been puzzled for a long time. Nongzhu witnessed everything in front of her. She really could not imagine that just because of a few words, a Yuanying stage cultivator could immediately become so powerful. This pair of master and disciple was too amazing. She immediately muttered the words that Bai Changchun wanted her to pass on to old Bai. Then she asked suspiciously, These few words are so powerful? Why didn't I hear it? Everyone can hear it. Then why would my master pass it on to me through your mouth? Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, I just learned a set of magic arts from my master's words. I don't know how powerful it is. Do you want to have a try? Let me have a try. Nongzhu subconsciously looked at the withered flower bed and said suspiciously, Are you going to try it on me? Yu Qianqiu smiled embarrassedly and said, I just learned it, so I don't know how powerful it is. Senior, you have a high cultivation level. I want to try it on you so that you can evaluate the power of my magic arts. Nongzhu glanced at the withered flower bed again and thought that this magic art was a bit strange. Thinking that if she also became an old man in an instant, it would be very interesting. This thing could not become young again, right? She was shocked and coughed twice and said, There is a big gap between our cultivation levels. It is useless to try it on me. You'd better find someone who has a similar cultivation level as you to try it. After saying that, she turned around and left. She didn't want to say anything more. Yu Qianqiu shouted, Don't go. I'm afraid that my magic art is too powerful. If I try it on someone else, they will die. You have a high cultivation level, so it should be no problem. Hearing this, Nongzhu quickened her pace. She scolded in her heart, Bastard, I know it is too powerful, but I still let you try it, unless there is something wrong with my head. Could it be that you are scared? Yu Qianqiu shouted. Nongzhu, who walked to the swing, stopped and turned back with a sneer. Are you kidding me? How can I be afraid of you, who is only in the Yuanying realm? She added in her heart, I'm afraid that your magic art is too strange. There is no need to take risks for something that I don't know the details of, and that is not good for me. Yu Qianqiu came over and said with a smile, Don't worry, I won't delay you. I just want to try it casually. I want you to help me evaluate how useful it will be if I fight against an enemy. Nongzhu said coldly, Go away, don't come near me, I want to rest. If you keep talking, don't blame me for sealing your dantian again. I won't release it for you no matter what. Yu Qianqiu was stunned, but he did not force her. He walked into the house, ready to find someone else to try it. He probably did not know that Nongzhu cherished her appearance the most. Otherwise, she would not look like a middle-aged man at this age. She really spent a lot of cultivation to maintain it. In fact, Nongzhu was not afraid of the power of the magic art, but she was afraid that the magic art was too strange. It would turn her blue face into a white-haired old face, which was more painful than killing her. Therefore, she simply chose to avoid it. She really did not dare to take the risk. He had wandered around the world and understood that there were many strange and mysterious things that could not be determined by the level of cultivation. The Prime Minister of Daong Kingdom, Yin Wufeng, returned. Many people in the court sighed. Why did he come back? Those bandits who killed and robbed people were all good-for-nothings. Weren't they bloodthirsty? He did not cause any trouble, so why did he come back? In the eyes of others, Yin Wufeng's matter was a result that could be seen and guessed. People like the Emperor of Daong Kingdom and those in the cultivation world were the ones who knew the truth. Of course, no one would announce such a thing to ordinary people. The matter gradually calmed down and Daong Kingdom returned to normal. The martial arts competition for the Emperor's son-in-law that was postponed due to the attack on the Prime Minister's residence was once again organized in full swing. After all, it was not good to let the distinguished guests from various countries wait any longer. The entire Daong city returned to its original liveliness. It was indeed lively, but it had to be lively. Yu Qianqiu's bold statement that he was the strongest in the world below the spirit-severing stage had already caused a huge uproar in various countries. There was a person called by Chongqun who was the strongest in the world. It could not be helped. Even those spirit-severing experts had admitted it, so naturally, no one dared to have any objections. Now, a Yu Qianqiu had suddenly appeared and boasted shamelessly. Furthermore, he was a cultivator from Huaxia. Most importantly, this person was only at the nascent soul stage. Although it was said that this person had a glorious battle record in Huaxia's cultivation world, it did not mean that there was no one in the cultivation world who could make him talk nonsense. This could not be tolerated. Therefore, a large number of cultivators gathered in Daong City to teach this fellow a lesson. Naturally, there were also people who wanted to watch the show. It just so happened that the Daong Kingdom was going to have a martial arts competition for the Emperor's son-in-law. Coupled with the fact that a group of cultivators had come to participate in this grand event, it would be strange if Daeong City was not lively. Of course, those who came were basically cultivators below the spirit severing stage. It should be known that Yu Qianqiu had made such a big name for himself. If anyone could kill Yu Qianqiu, their reputation would naturally rise along with it. When people talked about it, they would definitely say that so-and-so killed Yu Qianqiu. Many people usually could not find an opportunity to stand out. Now that they could kill Yu Qianqiu, who was at the nascent soul stage, it should not be a problem, right? Therefore, outside the Bai Wan Kingdom's embassy, many people dressed in strange clothes appeared every day. These people were naturally cultivators from various countries. However, they all knew that there were Mr. Nongzhu, who was at the middle stage of the spirit severing stage, and Wen Rue, who was at the early stage of the spirit severing stage. With 2 spirit severing stage cultivators in charge, although they knew that Yu Qianqiu was inside, they did not have the guts to barge in. Yu Qianqiu, who was inside the embassy, did not know what the situation was like outside, but he could guess that there were many cultivators outside who were eyeing him covetously. If he heard someone say something like that, even if he did not do anything, he would come to watch the show and see how that person died. Sigh. That damned Hua Zongming. I will not forgive you. Yu Qianqiu sat on the steps in front of the house and sighed endlessly. Actually, he was no longer interested in participating in that bull-*T martial arts competition to recruit a son-in-law. Back then, because he was unfamiliar with the situation, he wanted to use the opportunity to get to know the cultivators from various countries and understand the situation. Ever since he received Lu Wanwan's Jade Archive and gained some understanding of the situation, he already had a plan in mind. He did not intend to stay in Daeong City to play around anymore. However, he should not have been too greedy and kidnapped Yin Wufeng to extort Yin Baikong. However, who knew that someone would spread the news to the whole world, and even attracted Nongzhu over. That damned Nongzhu even lured Hua Zongming and the others over. His identity was accidentally exposed, and in order to get rid of the spirit-severing stage cultivators, he made a bold statement again. I reckon that the development of the situation is like a rolling snowball, getting bigger and bigger. I wonder how many cultivators have come to Daeong City now. Yu Qianqiu sat on the steps and muttered to himself. Looking at Nongzhu, who was swaying gently on the swing, he gnashed his teeth in hatred. He wanted nothing more than to go over and carve the word bastard on that handsome face. Yu Qianqiu had asked Nongzhu to take Furong away, but that guy just had to be interested in the martial arts competition to recruit a son-in-law. He said that he had never seen it before and insisted on watching it before leaving. Didn't he know that the longer this dragged on, the more cultivators from various countries would come, and the more dangerous it would be for him? He had ulterior motives. After sending Furong back to Utopia, he had yet to think of a way to explain to Chu Pinger that he would not do something like causing a family conflict. It was too dangerous to bring Furong along with him, and the current situation was too dangerous. If he sent her back to Myriad Fragrance Garden after patting his chest in front of his father-in-law, how embarrassing would it be if he sent her back after just a few days? After thinking about it, he could only wait until Nongzhu took Furong away. When that time came, it would not be difficult for him to sneak out alone. He had already prepared a backup plan when he secretly dug a cave outside the city. If it really did not work, he could ask Boss Sang of the vast welcoming tavern to take a silver ball out of the city. Tomorrow was the day of the martial arts competition to recruit a son-in-law. In the majestic palace of Daeong City, flags were fluttering in the wind and security was tight. The venue for the martial arts competition was basically ready, waiting for the winner to take the crown and marry the princess. West Palace Courtyard, Liuxiang House, the widowed residence of the third princess of Daeong Kingdom, Zhao Chenxiang. Inside the Liuxiang House, a young woman in formal dress sat with her eyebrows furrowed. Her appearance was good, and she stared at the portrait hanging on the screen opposite her. Her eyes revealed a sense of stubbornness. On the portrait was a handsome and mighty general in armor, riding on a war horse and holding a spear. Beside the portrait was a note. Chu Xiong. This woman was the third princess of Daeong Kingdom, Zhao Chenxiang. There were no palace maids in her boudoir, only her 2 married sisters sitting on either side of her. The 2 sisters had received their father's order and specially came to stay with their sister for a few days. The eldest sister, Zhao Rongxiang, and the second sister, Zhao Hanxiang, looked at each other. The former held Chenxiang's hand and sighed. Third sister, why do you have to do this? Chu Xiong has been dead for many years. I think he would not want to see you like this in the underworld. Yes. Third sister. Zhao Hanxiang smiled bitterly. Since you have already begged father to hold the martial arts competition to recruit a son-in-law, this portrait of Chu Xiong should not be left. If the future son-in-law sees it, how can he endure it? I'm afraid it will ruin your sister's lifelong happiness. Zhao Qinxiang did not say anything. Instead, she stood up and walked to the hanging portrait. She looked at it and said, "A good woman does not marry a second husband. Chu Xiong, after I take revenge for you, I will cut my throat and go to the underworld to find you to apologize." After saying this, she rolled up the portrait and stuffed it into the copper incense tripod beside her. Not long after, black smoke rose. The two elder sisters were stunned by her words and actions. Chapter 487. In the imperial study, Emperor Zhao Hang dismissed his two daughters expressionlessly after listening to their report. The two girls looked at each other in surprise. They did not expect their father to have no reaction at all. However, they did not dare to say anything. They had been married for a long time, and when they came back occasionally, they were actually trembling in fear when facing their father. Once they stepped out of the palace, it did not feel like a father and daughter meeting. Instead, it felt like the wife of an official meeting the emperor. The two girls bowed obediently and left. Zhao Heng picked up the memorial on the desk and opened it. Suddenly, he tilted his head slightly and asked, "Has Shi Wenguang's vanguard General Zhang Pang really been executed?" Beside him was a white-haired chief eunuch. He replied sternly, "It is difficult for the spies to break through Shi Wenguang's hidden sentries. Not many of them can return alive. However, it is true that Zhang Pang violated military discipline and was beheaded. I believe it is true. Shi Wenguang's army is very strict. He does not tolerate people who violate military discipline." Zhao Heng's expression was strange. He admired and hated Shi Wenguang. He admired him because he was a rare talent, but he hated him because such a general was not under his command but his enemy. Thinking of the 2 million-strong army occupying the western part of Huaxia, the 6 countries could not cross the border. If they made any moves, they would be attacked immediately. The gains did not make up for the losses. They had been at war for many years, even with the 6 countries working together to attack, but they still suffered under Shi Wenguang's hands. In a fit of anger, he mobilized millions of troops and divided the 6 countries. The 6 countries could not fight back. In the end, the 6 countries asked for peace with Huaxia. The rulers of the 6 countries were humiliated. One could imagine how depressed they were. The emperor of Huaxia is incompetent, but he has such a general under him. It is difficult for us to cross the line. We are going to lose our lives. Zhao Heng could not help but sigh. "Master, don't worry," the old eunuch said softly. "Didn't the higher-ups tell us to bear with it for now?" After the war between the cultivation world of various countries and the cultivation world of China was over, someone would naturally deal with Shi Wenguang secretly. From then on, the western part of Huaxia will no longer have such a brave general. The various countries will work together to divide the Huaxia Empire. From the fact that this old eunuch knew about the cultivation world, it was obvious that he was someone Zhao Heng trusted. It's a pity that he died. Talent was hard to come by. Unfortunately, I can't use it. Forget it. Let's not talk about this anymore. Zhao Heng stared at the old eunuch and said, "Since the third young lady is determined to die, don't let the third young lady know that Zhang Pang has died. Let her continue to choose her husband." Understood. The old eunuch nodded slightly. Zhao Heng began to focus on the memorials. As he corrected them, he said, "This girl is so stubborn. She has been so devoted to a dead man for so many years. She begged me to hold a martial arts competition to find a prince consort for her. I thought she had thought it through, but I didn't expect her to actually want to find a capable prince consort to avenge the death of Chu Xiong. But that's fine too. I can use this opportunity to recruit talented generals and prepare for the future." "Master is wise," the old eunuch said. Zhao Heng turned his head and glared at him. "Keep an eye on them for me. Most of the royal relatives and nobles from other countries aren't doing well in their own countries. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to our country to be the emperor's son-in-law. Although they aren't doing well, the influence they have received since childhood is not something the children of ordinary families can compare with. Among them, There are many who are familiar with military strategies. There is only one daughter left, and only one prince consort. As long as the rest are talented, try your best to win them over. Let them stay and work for me. I am willing to give them high positions and generous salaries. Don't worry, master. I will arrange it properly. The old eunuch nodded. Then, there was silence in the imperial study. Today was the day of the martial arts competition to find a prince consort. The entire Daeong city was very lively. The common people couldn't enter the palace to watch the competition, so they had to go to the streets to watch the participants pass by. Normally, only the participants could enter the palace. The rest of the attendants were limited. But because of Nongzhu, when Rue personally went to the palace to look for the Mi brothers. Of course, the Mi brothers wouldn't care about this. They immediately found a few tokens to enter the palace and gave them to one Rue. As soon as they went out, they saw a crowd. Nongzhu, Yu Qianchou, Furong, and Zhang Peng squeezed into a carriage and joined the long queue of people from various countries. The soldiers had cleared the streets, so the journey was smooth. Nongzhu looked outside with a smile. She hadn't seen such a lively expression for a long time. Furong's face was also full of curiosity. She looked around. The most depressed one was Zhang Peng. After all, among them, he was the only one who was forced by his master to participate in the martial arts competition. The others were just watching the fun, but he was the one being watched. He couldn't be happy even if he wanted to. Yu Qianchou lifted the curtain and looked at the two sides of the street. He kept shaking his head as he looked. There were many cultivators in the crowd. He couldn't tell who had a higher cultivation level, but there were many cultivators who were lower than him. He guessed that they were just here to watch the fun. Since it was like this, he might as well face it calmly. He looked at those cultivators with a provocative look. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, I can't avoid it. Today, I'll show my face to the world of cultivators from various countries. Who's afraid of who? Yu Qianchou looked outside with a smile. From time to time, he raised his middle finger at the cultivators in the crowd. They didn't know what it meant anyway. Boy, what do you mean by raising your middle finger? Nongzhu couldn't help but ask. Yu Qianchou replied with an "oh" and said disapprovingly, "It's nothing. It's a custom of Daeong Kingdom. I'm greeting people on the street to show my respect." Hey, I've been here before. Why haven't I heard of it? Nongzhu murmured and turned around. Without saying a word, she pointed her middle finger out of the window and shook it vigorously. His fingers were slender, and his middle finger was raised elegantly. No wonder he was Mr. Nongzhu. Yu Qianchou's expression twitched and he put down his hand. He couldn't associate himself with that guy. After entering the imperial city, everyone got off their horses and alighted. The gate of the imperial city was guarded by a large number of soldiers. It was impossible for ordinary people to get close. Those miscellaneous cultivators couldn't break in either. They couldn't enter without a token to enter the palace. There were some rules that even cultivators couldn't break. The Mi brothers had transferred a large number of people from the same sect from Mount Guangguang to guard around the imperial city. This was to prevent cultivators from breaking in. The guests from various countries entered the imperial city in a single file. The first thing they did was to pay their respects to the emperor of Daeong Kingdom. Nongzhu, Wen Rue, and the others naturally couldn't pay their respects to a secular emperor. Mi Russian was waiting in the imperial city. When he saw them, he immediately came to greet them and took them out for other arrangements. Only Zhang Peng was driven back by Yu Qianchou and went through the process with the one family. Mi Russian carefully looked at Yu Qianchou a few times, then led them to a sizable side hall. There were a few hundred chairs arranged in a circle. More than 10 people had already arrived. They were sitting peacefully and chatting with each other. They were probably cultivators sent by various countries to protect the royal family. Mi Russian came in and cupped his hands. "Everyone, Mr. Nongzhu and Mr. Wen Rue are here." The group of people hurriedly stood up and saluted. Nongzhu raised his middle finger and said, "Do as you please. Don't be polite. I'm here to watch the fun." The group of people returned to their seats with doubts. They didn't know what Nongzhu meant by raising his middle finger, but judging from his expression, it should be a greeting. Everyone's eyes then fell on Yu Qianchou and sized him up. Yu Qianchou felt uncomfortable being stared at. He found that there were a few early-stage nascent soul cultivators, a few middle-stage nascent soul cultivators, and a few others whose cultivation he couldn't see. Then people came in one after another. The first thing they did was to greet Nongzhu and Wenrui. Nongzhu casually raised his middle finger, which stunned the people who greeted him. The second thing they did was to look at Yu Qianchou, who was beside Nongzhu. After being stared at for a long time, Yu Qianchou was a little numb. He simply entertained himself with Furong and pretended not to see anything. After waiting for a while, it was estimated that almost all the people had arrived. Hundreds of chairs were almost full. Between every 2 chairs, there was a small tea table with tea and snacks on it. There were more than a dozen disciples in the Foundation building realm who kept shuttling back and forth, pouring tea and water for them. They were probably brought from the Guangzhou Peak. The atmosphere in the hall was a little quiet. Because of the presence of Nongzhu and Wenrui, the 2 cultivators in the Huashan realm, everyone was a little nervous. However, there were some bold ones who couldn't stand it anymore. They coughed, stood up and saluted Nongzhu, and said loudly, "Mr. Nongzhu, may I ask if the person sitting next to you is Yu Qianchou?" Hundreds of bright eyes all stared at them. Nongzhu looked at Yu Qianchou with a smile and nodded. "Yes, he is Yu Qianchou. What can I do for you?" His tone seemed to be reminding something or wanting to see something interesting. Yu Qianchou immediately looked at that person. He was squarish, tall and strong. From his appearance, he indeed had the talent to stand out. "Silly bird. I am Ding Wei, a cultivator in the late nascent soul stage. I heard that Yu Qianchou claimed to be the best cultivator in the world below the Huashan realm. Is that true?" Ding Wei asked respectfully. Yes, I heard it with my own ears," Nongzhu pointed at Yu Qianchou and said with a smile. "I can prove that he did say that." Not only did Yu Qianchou feel uncomfortable hearing this, even when Rui looked at Nongzhu with some surprise. Back at Bai Wan's embassy, he risked everything to protect Yu Qianchou. How could he be suspected of selling him out now? Nongzhu continued to chat with Ding Wei with a teasing tone. The topic was getting more and more sensitive. Only their hearty voices could be heard in the hall. Yu Qianchou squinted his eyes and looked around. Everyone was staring at him. Coupled with Nongzhu's ambiguous attitude, it would be hard for him to have a good time today. He sat next to Wenrui and rubbed his nose with his palm. He tilted his head and asked softly, "Senior Wenrui, apart from the 2 of you, are there any other cultivators in the Huashan realm? What are their cultivations like?" Wenrui was stunned. He looked at Ding Wei and scanned everyone present. Then he replied telepathically, "Apart from me and Mr. Nongzhu, there are no cultivators in the Huashan realm. There are 9 in the early stage of the Tribulation passing. The rest are all below the Tribulation passing stage. What do you want?" "That's good to hear," Yu Qianchou muttered softly. Under Wenrui's surprised gaze, he coughed and stood up. Chapter 488. Nongzhu and him were separated by Wenrui. They sat in the middle, followed by Nongzhu, Wenrui, Yu Qianchou, Furong, and Wenbai. Even though he spoke softly, Nongzhu could not hear him. In fact, many people heard him. "Everyone says this kid is good at stirring up trouble. Before I leave, I want to see how he does it." Nongzhu glanced at him with a smile, leaned back, and did not speak. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. Yu Qianchou cupped his fists and said, "Ding Wei? Brother Ding? Have we met before?" "No, this is my first time." Ding Wei also cupped his fists. "I see that Brother Ding keeps mentioning my name. Is there something you want to talk to me about?" Yu Qianchou smiled. Ding Wei snorted. "I'm not the only one looking for you. Based on what you said, cultivators from every country want to find you. Let's see if you have the ability to call yourself the #1 cultivator below the soul-forming stage." He then looked around and shouted, "Everyone, am I right?" "That's right. You're a mere nascent soul cultivator. How dare you call yourself #1? With someone taking the lead and Yu Qianchou standing up as well, the group of people immediately began to sway from their seats and jeered. Some even stood up and pointed their fingers at him as they berated him. Furong immediately became nervous. She had never seen such a scene before. Yu Qianchou stuck his pinky into his ear and blew on it. Then he slowly looked at the crowd and said indifferently, Don't get too excited, everyone. I was just joking. I didn't even take it seriously, but you all took it seriously. It's unbelievable. The crowd suddenly became quiet. Nongzhu laughed dryly, but she forced herself not to make a sound. No wonder he was a soul-forming stage cultivator. Ding Wei, who stood up, was stunned for a while. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he said angrily, "Joking? How dare you joke about the reputation of the cultivators in the world? What do you think the cultivators in the world are? Brother Ding, don't you think you're putting too much on us? It's not as serious as you say, right?" Yu Qianqiu shrugged. Hua! The sound of chairs moving rang out. Almost everyone stood up and pointed at Yu Qianqiu as they questioned him sternly. "Little brat. That's nonsense." With so many curses mixed together, it was almost impossible to hear them clearly. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He had never been cursed by so many people at once. From everyone's extreme reactions, it could be seen that the situation was indeed as serious as Ding Wei had said. There was a hint of a common enemy. Did these guys eat rat poison? Is it worth it? It was a pity that he wasn't Stephen Chow, who could scold a whole bunch of people by himself. Otherwise, he could really fight it out. Therefore, Yu Qianqiu frowned coldly at the thousands of fingers pointing at him. He was unfazed by the praise and humiliation. He planned to settle old scores with everyone after they were done scolding him. At first, Nongzhu looked at Yu Qianqiu with a smile. This brat was usually sharp-tongued, but now he knew what it meant to have the public's mouth melt gold. She had lived for more than 1,000 years and had never seen a person being scolded by so many people at once. However, after listening for a while, Nongzhu couldn't laugh anymore. It was a mess, and she didn't know how long it would last. It was simply annoying. He immediately let out a cold snort that reverberated in the hall. The curses of the group of people finally stopped. Yu Qianqiu really had to give it to these people. They were like shrews cursing in the streets. In fact, he should have a deeper understanding of what it meant to anger the public. If Nongzhu and Wen Rui were not sitting here, he reckoned that a group of people would have rushed up and beaten him up. Everyone! Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and looked around. I am deeply aware of my mistake. Because of my momentary slip of the tongue, I have hurt the feelings of the majority of the cultivators in the cultivation world. Here, I solemnly express my sincerest apology to everyone. I hope that you can spread my words and resolve this misunderstanding as soon as possible. I hope that we can bury the hatchet and build a better tomorrow for the cultivation world hand in hand. Thank you, everyone. His words were sincere, and so was his attitude. Unfortunately, he didn't get the applause that Yu Qianqiu had expected. This speech was fresh, and everyone needed some time to digest it. There was a short silence in the hall again. The innocent Farong was the first to come to her senses. She looked at Yu Qianqiu with admiration. It turned out that words could be said in such a dignified way. Nongzhu frowned and exchanged a look with Wen Rui. She muttered, "What nonsense are they talking about?" Someone came to his senses and cursed, "Damn it! You are from the cultivation world of Huaxia. You are not on the same side as us. Who wants to build a better tomorrow for the cultivation world hand in hand with you?" There was a lot of cursing, but the voices were much softer. Thanks to Nongzhu's cold snort, they had calmed down a lot. Ding Wei shouted, "Yu Qianqiu, you have to pay the price for saying something wrong. How can you just apologize? If you do that, do we still need to fight and kill in the cultivation world? Damn it! This seems to be the line I used before." Yu Qianqiu's face darkened. He said indifferently, "I have let you scold me and I have apologized. What else do you want?" Everyone was stunned. They really didn't know what to do with him. Everyone looked at Nongzhu. They all knew that Nongzhu was Yu Qianqiu's protection. If they angered him, no one present would have a good ending. Nongzhu smiled and drew circles on the tea table with her slender fingers. She smiled at Wen Rui and said, "We will not interfere with the younger generation's business." He didn't even look at Yu Qianqiu, whose face was as cold as ice. Wen Rui glanced at him and was startled. He nodded slightly, indicating that he would not interfere with the younger generation's business. The two soul-forming cultivators said that they would not interfere. Everyone was emboldened. Ding Wei shouted, "If you are really the strongest cultivator below the soul-forming stage, Then show me what you are capable of. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave. You want to fight? Yu Qianqiu sneered. Ding Wei didn't want to waste time. He stretched out his hand and said, I will fight you first. You are the strongest cultivator below the soul-forming stage. The meaning behind his words was clear. He wanted to fight. You think you're worthy? Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and said, I think you're tired of living, right? The crowd was in an uproar. This guy obviously didn't take Ding Wei seriously. Ding Wei was so angry that he laughed and said, Whether I am worthy or not is not a matter of words. Only after we fight will we know who is tired of living. Please. The hall was surrounded by the crowd. The space left in the middle was only a few square meters. If they were to fight, they really didn't know if it would be enough for two people to fight. I don't want to fight. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, If you want to fight, then I'll fight. Who do you think I am? He sat back in his seat as if it was none of his business. Nongzhu was stunned. This didn't seem like the Yu Qianqiu she heard about. What do you mean by the strongest cultivator below the soul-forming stage? I think he's just a cowardly rat hiding his head and tail. Ding Wei cursed to his heart's content. The crowd immediately started to condemn him again. Their words were almost the same as Ding Wei's. Yu Qianqiu laughed coldly and slowly stood up. He reached out and pointed at Ding Wei and said, You like to scold me? Once I make a move, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to cry when you fall. He then pointed at the crowd and said disdainfully, You are just a bunch of trash. Do you think you are worthy to bare your fangs and brandish your claws at me? Nongzhu looked at him suspiciously. This guy's words were so soft and hard today. What was he trying to do? The extremely slanderous words made the crowd feel like they had eaten gunpowder. After sitting down for a while, they all jumped up again. Someone even shouted, Yu Qianqiu, come and fight me if you have the guts. A 3-feet-long blue flying knife flew out of Ding Wei's storage bag. He raised it high and was ready to fight first. Yu Qianqiu pushed his hand and said, Wait! I knew you were a coward who only put up a strong front. Ding Wei sneered. You want to fight? No problem. But I don't do things that I don't have anything better to do. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the crowd in disdain. He took out a storage bag and threw it on the tea table between him and Wen Rue. He pointed at it and said, There are 1 million upper-grade spirit stones in there. If anyone beats me or kills me, this 1 million upper-grade spirit stones will belong to him. Nongzhu was stunned. Was there something wrong with this kid's brain? He said he didn't do things that he didn't have anything better to do. The crowd was also stunned. Was there such a good thing? Then, everyone nodded in understanding. This kid was probably feeling guilty and wanted to use the situation to make people think that he was confident and was just trying to scare them. Ha ha! Ding Wei laughed wildly. Everyone, I'm sorry. Who told me to come out first? This 1 million high-grade spirit stones is mine. What are you laughing at? Yu Qianqiu immediately poured cold water on them. This is a gamble of money and life. Anyone who wants to fight me and earn 1 million spirit stones must first take out 1 million high-grade spirit stones as a wager. If you don't have money, don't embarrass yourself. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Let the rich fight. I'll fight you any time. Ding Wei's arrogant smile froze on his face. The crowd was also stunned. The people here were not poor, but they did not have high positions in their sections. There were not many who could carry 1 million high-grade spirit stones with them. Nongzhu was suddenly enlightened. It turned out that this guy admitted defeat first to make everyone think that he was afraid of them. When a group of people unscrupulously criticized him, he ridiculed them so that they had no choice but to avenge their humiliation. Then he threw out a huge bet. This group of people was in a difficult position. Nongzhu squinted at everyone's expressions. Most people thought that Yu Qianqiu was bullying them because they did not have money. He wanted to scare them with a huge wager to avoid a fight. What they didn't know was that this kid wanted to kill people to earn money. He wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It seemed that Ze was right. Whatever this kid did, it was mostly related to money. Ding Wei, if you don't have money, get someone else to come up. Don't just stand there. Yu Qianqiu sneered. Ding Wei said angrily, I came in a hurry. Where do I have so many spirit stones to bet with you? You are clearly scared and purposely used money to make things difficult for others. TSK. If you really want to fight me, that is not a problem at all. Yu Qianqiu glanced at me Russian who was standing at the side with his hands behind his back. This old thing was standing there calmly and did not say anything. How could he let Hua Zongming's people watch? He raised his finger and said, "It is normal that the guests did not bring money at the last minute. But I think the owner of this place wants to gather some spirit stones in his territory. If you really want to prove that you are not trash, you can borrow some from the owner. I think the owner is not so stingy." Chapter 489. Everyone looked at me Russian, not knowing what he would say. Me Russian was shocked. He had been standing on the side and had not said a word. How did he get involved? Borrow money to fight? Ding Wei was dumbfounded. Everyone fell into silence again. Nongzhu was overjoyed. This brat was really vengeful. He had his eyes on Hua Zongming and would not let him go if he had the chance. How did Bai Chongchun get such a precious disciple? I told you, you are a bunch of trash. Yu Qianqiu looked around and said, "Gambling without borrowing money is fake. You have no confidence in yourself. If you really have the confidence to defeat me, are you afraid of not being able to pay me back? What a joke. No wonder people say that dogs that bark don't bite, and dogs that bite don't bark. It is indeed true. Today, I present these words to all of you, and I hope that all of you will kindly accept them." How dare you? How arrogant! The group was angered by these words. He actually called them dogs. Ding Wei's face turned red as he said, "Yu Qianqiu, why are you the one making the rules? Today has nothing to do with money. I'm going to fight you to the death." He wasn't going to take out any money to fight Yu Qianqiu head-on. "Wait." Yu Qianqiu pushed his hand away and said to me Russian in a deep voice, "This is the territory of your light illumination peak. No matter what, I'm a guest. Now that someone wants to attack me, is your light illumination peak really going to ignore it? We're all guests, so how can you favor one over the other? Is this how your light illumination peak treats its guests?" With this accusation on him, me Russian knew he had to speak up. After all, he was the owner of this place. There were some rules that no one could break. He teleported between the two of them and said lightly, "We are all guests. We can talk things over." Since me Russian had already come out to stop them, Ding Wei naturally did not dare to be presumptuous in front of this cultivator in the last phase of Heaven's test. He put away the blue flying knife in his hand, pointed at Ding Wei and shouted, "Yu Qianqiu, you are so shameless. You said you would fight, but now you are cowering. Are you still a man?" Yu Qianqiu was too lazy to pay attention to him. He cupped his hands to me Russian and said, "High Priest, you have seen what happened. Now I need you to come and uphold justice." Nongzhu smiled and said nothing. He wanted to see how this guy would end up talking nonsense. "How do you want me to uphold justice?" Me Russian said expressionlessly. "Although they have the advantage in numbers, I'm not someone who's afraid of trouble. But if they take turns, and I fight one after the other, won't I have to fight more than 300 rounds? Even if I win every round, I'll be exhausted to death." Yu Qianqiu chuckled and said, "I admit that I increased the bet to reduce the pressure and eliminate those who can't afford it. Do you think it's too much for me to make a small request against more than 300 people, High Priest?" Me Russian was not in a hurry to answer. He asked the crowd, "Do you think Yu Qianqiu's request is too much?" No matter how thick-skinned they were, when they heard this, it was 1 to 300. Who would have the nerve to say the word too much? In the silence, me Russian nodded to Yu Qianqiu and said, "No one objected. Your request is too much. Is this the justice you want me to uphold?" "The justice I want you to uphold is very simple." Yu Qianqiu pointed to the storage bag on the tea table and said, "Gambling with your life and money. If you can afford 1 million upper-level spiritual stones, I will play with you any time. If someone can't afford it and still wants to pick a fight, then please uphold justice, High Priest." He glanced at Ding Wei, as if saying that Ding Wei was the one who couldn't afford it and still wanted to pick a fight. Ding Wei's face turned red in anger. He gritted his teeth but couldn't do anything. Me Russian was still expressionless. He asked the crowd, "Do you all agree that I will uphold justice?" After waiting for a while no one spoke, he nodded and said, "Since no one objects, then I will accept it. You all do as you wish." Then he teleported back to his original position. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at Ding Wei with disdain and said, "If you don't have the money, then leave. Don't stop other people from getting rich." When he said, other people, it wasn't clear if he was talking about others or himself. If Ding Wei left obediently like this, he wouldn't be able to come out in the future, he would be laughed at to death. He had indeed reached the point where he couldn't back down. Making up his mind, he gritted his teeth and strode towards me Russian and said, "High Priest, can you temporarily lend me 1,000,000 upper-level spiritual stones? If I win, I will return it immediately. If I lose, my sect will not renege on this debt." When he said this, his face was full of shame and anger. Only by killing Yu Qianqiu would he be able to wash away his shame. Yu Qianqiu scratched his nose and said in a strange tone, "When borrowing money, first ask clearly if there is interest, in case there is trouble afterwards. Don't look at me, I am reminding you out of goodwill." Ding Wei fiercely turned his head away. It was as if he had swallowed a fly. Logically, who would mention interest when borrowing spirit stones like this? Me Russian didn't rely on lending spirit stones to earn interest to survive. But since someone reminded him, how could he be thick-skinned and pretend he didn't know? He gritted his teeth and said, "High Priest, about the interest." Me Russian waved his hand to stop him from continuing. If he really asked for Ding Wei's interest in front of so many people, then he would really offend his sect. He said indifferently, "There is no interest." He already took out a storage ring and threw it over. "Thank you, High Priest." Ding Wei took the storage ring and thanked him. He turned around and strode over, holding the storage ring and yelled, "Yu Qianqiu, let's see what else you have to say now." "Of course I have something to say." Yu Qianqiu shrugged and said, "The bet should be given to a person of virtue and prestige that we both trust. It can't be given to you or me." "Humph." Ding Wei snorted and didn't say anything. Obviously, he agreed with this. The two of them looked at the two soul-forming cultivators at the same time. When it came to virtue and prestige, no one here could compare to the two of them. When Nongzhu heard this, he rubbed his hands and laughed. "If that's the case, then I will reluctantly do it." They were masters in the middle stage of soul-forming. Of course they wouldn't stain their spirit stones. Ding Wei didn't say anything and was about to hand over the storage ring to Nongzhu. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu shouted, "Wait, I am a little worried about handing the spirit stones to Mr. Nongzhu. It's better to give it to Senior Wan Rue." Everyone was stunned. Nongzhu was his umbrella. He didn't trust Nongzhu but Wan Rue? Ding Wei was about to go crazy from being tormented by this person. He didn't know if he should hand over the storage bag in his hand or not. Nongzhu also reached out his hand, but he didn't know whether to take it or not. He stared at Yu Qianqiu angrily. How dare he embarrass him in front of so many people? There was no need to explain. Yu Qianqiu just didn't trust Nongzhu. Now that the money was in Nongzhu's hands, others might be able to get it back, but it would be difficult for him. Especially his proactive response, it made people even more suspicious. Yu Qianqiu pushed the storage ring to Wan Rue and said, "Senior Wan Rue, please take care of it for now. If I lose or something happens to me, give this storage ring to the person who defeats me." Wan Rue glanced at Nongzhu, who was leaning on the chair with her eyes closed. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He put the storage ring on the tea table. With his cultivation, if Nongzhu didn't insist on coming, who would come to join in the fun? People in the soul-forming stage were usually heard but not seen. It was even more impossible for them to work for others. Ding Wei awkwardly took back the storage ring and didn't dare to look at Nongzhu again. He pushed the storage ring to Wan Rue and said the same thing as Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu dared to say that he didn't trust Nongzhu. Ding Wei didn't dare to say that he didn't trust Wan Rue, so he gave the storage ring to Wan Rue for safekeeping. "Please." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand gently. It was about to begin. Everyone was instantly refreshed. Even Nongzhu opened her eyes, forgetting about the temporary unhappiness. "Yu Qianqiu." Furong suddenly stood up. The worry in her eyes was obvious. Yu Qianqiu frowned slightly and glared at her. Furong sat back down in embarrassment. Ding Wei stepped back and was instantly refreshed. Finally, he could avenge his humiliation. He looked at the young couple and laughed. "You Qian-Cho, if you have any last words, tell your woman. I'll give you the time." The surrounding people also laughed along with him. Yu Qian-Cho had just put on a smiling face for Furong. When he heard this, he slowly turned around. There was no expression on his face. He asked calmly, "How do you want to die?" Ding Wei snorted and nodded. "You're about to die and you still dare to talk big." The blue flying knife once again flew above his head. Yu Qian-Cho spread out his sleeves and a dozen green lights flashed out, circling around his body. Everyone present stared at the green flying swords with twinkling eyes. They had heard that Yu Qian-Cho could control multiple flying swords at the same time, but this was the first time they had seen it. Out of everyone present, only Nongzhu knew that these flying swords were formed from green flames. The flying swords danced around him as Yu Qian-Cho walked towards Ding Wei expressionlessly. He said indifferently, "If I say you're trash, then you're trash. I'll let you make the first move. I want to see who's the trash." Ding Wei roared angrily, and the blue saber above his head began to spin faster and faster. One saber became two, two became four, until it became 8, and then it stopped increasing. Yu Qian-Cho was slightly surprised. He didn't know if it was an illusion or if the blue knife was also a treasure. Swoosh swoosh. The 8 rapidly spinning blue knives were like 8 blue plates. With a swoosh sound, they suddenly spread out. Yu Qian-Cho looked to his left and right. The blue revolving flying daggers had already surrounded him from all directions and were rapidly approaching him. F***CK. This thing might be useful to scare others, but you want to play this game with me? Let's see who's surrounded. Yu Qian-Cho activated his sword art. The protective flying sword immediately split into 8 green lights. They quickly clashed with the 8 flying knives, making a series of metal clanging sounds. Then he waved his sleeves. Hundreds of green lights instantly flew out from his sleeves and scattered around the hall, dazzling everyone's eyes. By the time the flying sword stopped spinning, everyone realized that Ding Wei was already surrounded by hundreds of flying swords. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.